house.
Hello, Roger. Hello, Jen. Hello, Jay.
I don't see any digging out in front of below our house, John.
I theoretically we're done and they've agreed and we have a deal, but we need it in writing and Sean's still trying to get it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We
I
are
have-
live on YouTube, just as a reminder.
Say that again.
We're live on YouTube.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Cool. Thank you. Hello, Carolyn.
Hi, John. How's it
There
going?
she is.
Good. How are you? You don't look like you're at your house.
No.
No, we are at a wedding in California.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, so we just made it to this house, and yeah, I'm like, Ken, we gotta get there. We gotta get there. So I get the Wi-Fi set up, and don't look too stressed out. You look like you're feeling better, John.
I am.
Great.
I'm not
That-
camping yet, but I will be soon.
Good. 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 And new glasses?
I've had them for a little while. I forgot. I always envy your glasses because you have the cool glasses.
No, you have great glasses. I like glasses, you
You
know.
got me started. Hello, Polly. Chris.
No,
Carolyn, isn't it a coincidence that Elise is also at a wedding in California?
And one of our staff.
And is it Molly or
Molly?
wait a minute. And one of our staff? Who else is at a wedding in California? It's not you, Jen, is it?
No,
It's possible we're all at the same wedding.
possible. Highly likely.
I'm thinking that. I could be wrong, but I'm thinking that.
Where in California are you, Carolyn?
Not super sure. It's this, I don't know how to pronounce the town, when people come to visit our lovely community and they think it's Alta, or Alta.
Alta, right.
Alta. And
Alta.
but I'm in this town called Gray Angle, I think. And
You are at the same wedding as Elise.
okay. And I think it's called
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of weird though. We stayed in Reno last night and it was like something from the apocalypse, or how you say that word. It was,
Apocalypse.
oh my God, the incredible density of the air is palpable. So in our hotel, like people were putting on masks to go outside. No masks inside anymore. It's masking outside. So
Yeah, fires to the west of you. Yeah. Yeah.
and it's not smoky up north there.
Chris, it was kind of weird. Ken went and fished the Little Truckee River on our way over, and it was so beautiful. There was no smoke, and Luna and I took a really nice walk. And then we came over another pass, and just headed north just before we got to Truckee, and it's pretty smoky where we are right now. So
Heather and I were in Gray Eagle and then Truckee and then kind of South Lake and south of there last spring, riding bikes and camping out and seeing friends in Truckee. And within 2 months, there were huge wildfires virtually everywhere we visited. I mean, not in Gray Eagle, but up on Mount Quincy is a place with a bike trail, and that whole zone was on fire. And then, the big fire in Tahoe and south of Lake Tahoe. And so, yeah, it's a nice area. Though. Gray Eagle's cool, and the Sierra Buttes and all that.
I don't mean to interrupt, but sorry, I just need to do some logistics, guys. So for all the attendees, because this is the work session, I am trying to move all of you to be panelists. So I believe you should be getting a prompt from me that you'll need to accept. And then it's going to move. Okay, I see Gloria Lee. Great, that's worked for you. Okay, Connie let's see, I'm trying to get everybody else into the main part of the meeting here, so.
Cliff is in there.
So I am doing it on purpose, everybody.
Oh, Jerry. Karen Travis, good. So who I haven't seen shown up is John Byrne,
Because he hasn't,
because he hasn't signed in yet, right?
he'll come
And
directly.
Cameron's just getting on right now, by the way.
Say that again, Polly?
Cameron is getting on right now.
Oh, all right. Oh, there's John Byrne, good.
Roger, how are you?
Doing fine.
Can I
Well-
ask in the attendee, sorry, John, hi, I'm trying to do a little,
Housework.
housekeeping here.
Yeah.
There's somebody with the phone number ending in 9118. I'm allowing you to speak. It looks like you're just on a phone, so I have unmuted you. Who is that?
Jenny Marie Linus.
Oh.
Yes, sorry, I didn't catch your name though.
Jenny Marie.
Jenny,
Oh,
thank you.
hi, Ginny Marie.
Yeah.
Hello. I'm on my cell phone.
That
Not
we,
my first choice.
whatever
Driving on the
works.
freeway.
Right. So I'm going with that. I'll mute myself, and when you call on me, then I'll mute myself, and then when you call on me, Jen, I'll speak. Okay?
Sounds
So-
lovely. I've renamed you in
All
the
right.
platform, so nobody knows your number now.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Maren, I'm trying to promote you to panelist as well, but it doesn't seem like it's sticking very well. Are you able to accept that?
You're
Oh,
trying to promote me?
nope. Maren. There she is.
Maren, okay.
Okay, I think we've got everybody that. Jay, I was trying to promote you back too, but you can sit quiet or not, whatever you want to do in this part of the meeting. Okay, Roger, we have everybody so far, and I'll keep bringing people over as
Okay. Well, good afternoon. Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the work session for our September 14th, 2022 Town Council meeting. I believe I need to read the
No.
this meeting has no anchor location pursuant to my letter of September 1st for the health and welfare of the participants. Okay, now I described this as a work session, but it's not exactly that. And it's going to be a little bit different. So this is really a session to discuss noise in town. And I might observe that this has been a rather noisy summer, more so than in the past. There's some big construction projects, particularly the remote avalanche control system that was installed with helicopters. We have a new lift going in. There's the general summer mad dash to build things in the summer here. So there's been lots of helicopter traffic. There's and for a while it was very intense. There's been drilling associated with the drilling of making the lift. There's been some explosives. It's been hot in the valley, and that's led more people to come up here. People make noise. There have been warm evenings, more outdoor evening activities with the associated noise that goes with them. So those of us who are noise sensitive or disturbed by all this, including, I might add, the wildlife. And one of the things I've noticed is that I haven't seen many moose around this summer. I wonder if if noise is a factor. I'm not a wildlife biologist, so I really don't know. That's just conjecture. But one of the reasons many of us are attracted to Alta is because it is such a naturally quiet environment, and particularly compared to urban or suburban settings. So too much noise for some of us is not really welcome. We kind of came here because we like it the way it is, and we'd like it to keep it that way. So the town has had noise restrictions in place for quite a long time, and they've been largely driven by construction, limiting construction hours so that people aren't hammering, sawing, drilling, so forth early in the morning or late into the evening. But we discovered there are really some defects in those ordinances, and they needed more objective criteria that will stand up in court. So we wanted to repair those kinds of things before they got worse. And this has been incentivized by, as I say, a more than usual noisy summer. So this session is labeled a public is labeled a work session, but I don't really think it should be properly labeled a work session, nor should it be properly labeled a public hearing where the town council sits quietly and listens to the public, and the same thing in the public comment period, nor is it a work session like the ones we usually have where the public sits quietly and listens to the town council. Rather, what we're going to try here is something different than we've done in my memory, at least, and that is we're going to have an open discussion. And the open discussion is between the town council, the public, the staff, and anybody else who would like to. Well, I guess that covers all of us. All humans are welcome. And the way I hope to handle this is that if you have something to say, raise your hand. There's a icon down at the bottom of this says raise your hand, and your hand can go up, and you can hit it again, and your hand can go back down. So raise your hand. I'll call on you. I'll attempt to give everybody fair shake, balance the discussion, try to avoid duplications or filibusters, and let's try it. So in some sense, an experiment. So let's see who would like to raise their hand and start. This could be unusually short. Oh no, there's Mike. Speak, Mike. Mike Morey.
Well, I guess the first thing I want to do is probably apologize to the council for punting this difficult issue your way, and just maybe make a brief statement, from my perspective on how we got to where we're at today. So as the mayor mentioned, there's been a lot of activity in town. Some of that activity has resulted in calls to the marshal's office to respond to potential noise ordinance violations. And as we've attempted to do that and drill down into our code, we found some problem areas. We're in talking to our legal counsel. Basically, the short version is we don't think our existing code is enforceable as written. So we came to you, looking for some kind of objective standard and guidance, for handling violations. And we as police officers really aren't allowed to be a victim of a societal crime. So whether we think something is too loud or not doesn't matter. It comes down to the person that has lodged the complaint versus what is the standard of proof for a violation. So that's why our request is before you, is to take a look at the ordinance. If it's the council's will to give us, a new ordinance or an amended ordinance that's got some standard that can be enforceable, if that's the council's will. So, thanks.
Okay. Mike has referred to a new ordinance, and Cameron actually was kind of the lead person to draft that. And even though he doesn't have his hand up, I'd like to call on him to say what changes he made from what was there previously.
Sure, I'm happy to. And can you hear me? Sometimes
Yes.
my microphone switches. Okay. So first, let me say I appreciate everyone's input, the public comment, the council members, the staff. It has been helpful, and I think has allowed us to get to a point where the council can make a decision on where to go. So the main changes that I've made based on the feedback and the prior meetings is to change the proposed quiet time from 10:30 p.m. To 7 a.m. and that's a change from the 10 o'clock p.m. to 7 a.m. that was originally proposed. I also took out an exemption for the town from the ordinance, from town activities. That was based on feedback from council members and staff and residents alike. They felt like if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. So that's been removed. Added some exemptions for snow removal for the roads, added some exemptions for snow removal, snow making for the ski area. Trying to think, a couple of typos. One that was still left in there, unfortunately. An extra word was left in, feet, actually. Just looking at, made some changes to the fireworks section. So under state law, the town can't restrict fireworks unless we go through a specific process. Otherwise, they're allowed for certain dates. Added in, or maybe not added in, clarified the appeal process for a permit if there are activities that are outside of the ordinance, that a person would be able to appeal if their permit application was denied, and directed where that appeal goes to. I think those were the main changes.
Okay. See, Jenny Marie, you are unable to hold
Right.
up your hand. So
Yeah.
if you want to say something, I think your only opportunity is just to
Thank you.
break in.
Okay, I thank you for that. And I wanted to ask what council members are in attendance today?
Oh, why don't we just run down and say who's here?
Thank you.
John Byrne, Roger Burke, Jen, John Goldner, Cameron, who just spoke, Mike Morey, Gloria Lee, Cliff Curry, Jerry Wow, Carolyn Ansel, Sheridan Davis, Polly McLean, Mike Mon, Chris Scully, Karen Davis, Margaret Burke, and Maren Askins and Connie Marshall.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
I have written a letter and Jen asked me if I'd be so kind as to read it, and I'd like to do that now. And I
Okay.
followed the same format as the other folks who wrote in. And for some of those who don't know this, I'm a 20-plus year resident of Elta. I actually live here. And I'm a 50-plus years working and living person in Little Cottonwood Canyon. So that tells you a little bit about how much time I've spent here. And this would, of course, be in regards to the noise ordinance review. And I would like to say first, I would like to thank the Town of Elta Council and our mayor for your time, your objectivity, and due diligence in regards to reviewing how our noise ordinance can best serve our community businesses, and guests. It is of great value that as a council, you congratulate yourself for choosing objectivity over self-interest, irritations, and personal preferences. I understand that having the life we each choose is a great gift in America. However, with that gift comes the responsibility of tolerance, perspective, and vision. So I'd like you to please consider the following. Elta is a resort town, and that in regards to property, the location of properties that are privately owned do not come with a guarantee that traffic patterns will stay the same, numbers of people in the area will stay the same, and community needs will stay the same. When we purchase a property, it is our responsibility to understand what our location can and possibly will become. We have the option to sell if we become dissatisfied with our location. A good example are the helicopters for light flight and avalanche mitigation. We purchased our home 20 plus years ago, and it is directly beneath the flight pattern of both, depending on the day and the project or rescue. Have I complained to Elta Central that my sleep, my quiet time, or my lifestyle vision of living at Elta is somewhat disturbed? Absolutely not. I recommend that as a community of lovely people, we can step back and recognize when we are acting on self-interest or when we are acting for the greater good. The word entitlement has been cast about for many reasons in the past several years. I personally would like to believe that this is not a label that describes my neighbors and town council. Next, I'd like to speak a little bit about businesses. We are a community of lodges that serve our community and the greater community of guests. They provide a tax base and a wonderful experience for our Town of Elta Resort Town guests. We need to support their efforts and thank them for the services they provide. Their businesses provide jobs. They keep alive the Elta tradition of housing, ski bums and board bums, who perform superior hospitality skills to lift operations. Without their businesses, we would not have the Elta Ski Resort we have so loved for decades. In regards to the noise ordinance, I recommend we honor community members, lodges, Elta Lift Company, and ancillary businesses with a 11 p.m. curfew. I recommend a decibel level is chosen that best supports community members, lodges, Elta Lift Company, and ancillary businesses. I recommend outdoor venues focused on placing speakers toward the south side of the building to mitigate sound. And I recommend the noise ordinance respects the constraints of helicopter operations as they interface with weather and temperature fluctuations, i.e. scheduling of avalanche, gas acts, and other remote or human-operated device use and maintenance. And so that is all I have to share today. And I really plead from my heart that when we think about this wonderful town of Elta, we think about more than ourselves and what we like, but we ask ourselves, how am I serving and how can I serve best? I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Ginny Marie. John has his hand up.
I guess mostly because Cameron highlighted the differences between the July draft and the September draft. I'm not sure that was actually your original question, Roger, but that's kind of what I wanted to talk about anyway. So I thought this might be an opportune time to speak. It's been great. One of the highlights of this process has been the level of participation has really been terrific. And there've been a lot of great comments received, including Ginny Marie's. I also thought Nancy Searle's comment was last meeting was really great. And I also thought Mike Malm's comments at the beginning of this process were really right on. In the staff report, there's some reference to that the staff, and that's I think mostly the legal staff, has considered the feedback and made the changes. I'm going to say barely. as I look at the July draft versus the September draft, yeah, the 10, I am also in favor of leaving the curfew at 11 o'clock, enforcing it vigorously and giving enforcement a chance to work here. That's kind of my overall position. Looking at the different changes, it's good that they moved it to 10:30. That actually, to me, sort of makes it harder because now we're not giving the businesses what they want over 30 minutes instead of an hour, which is a bit of a struggle. But as you go down through the changes, like the changes to exceptions or the addition of the ability to apply for a permit in July, it was a pretty plain ability to apply for a permit, although there weren't many, there wasn't much of a basis established for how the town would say yes or no. Now, yeah, there's the ability to apply for a permit, but we've actually made it harder. We now have a 30-day, you have to apply for your permit 30 days in advance. How is that reasonable with respect to the use of helicopters for construction? How can they possibly know 30 days in advance whether they're going to need to work on that on some Sunday a month out from now? So I actually think we made that hurdle more difficult. When it comes to construction, we made that more adverse to the ski area's use of helicopters by specifying that it does include helicopters, as opposed to in July, we were sort of generally silent on that issue. Those are, to me, are just a couple of examples of how, I think we haven't really taken into consideration very extensively the comments we've received. I thought it would be constructive to go through just very briefly, as an example of that, Mike's letter from July 12th. So I'm looking at the 6 points of Mike Mon's letter. We didn't take into consideration his first comment, which, really at all. The second comment we need to look at this through the eyes of the Forest Service, designated out as a high-use recreational ski area. We didn't take that into consideration. Summer construction season is very short. And we need to be able to use helicopters. We actually made it harder to use helicopters between July and September by putting in the 30-day process, which is just, I think, pretty unreasonable. His fifth comment we didn't take into consideration, that is that most places, including Salt Lake County's health regulations, measure the noise over an ambient sound level. That would have been a good thing to include and change. We didn't. And then number 6, the problematic element of, the loud conversation clause, which I don't know. It's a construction project. People need to be able to say, hey, watch out for that boom. We're pouring concrete. Is it good to go? Stuff like that. We're making that OB. So just by way of example, those are the 6 comments Mike had. We didn't take any of those into consideration in this draft, or I should say more accurately, staff didn't take any of those into consideration between July and September. So the changes have been pretty limited. I personally am still, I really embraced Ginny Marie's comment today. And like I said, I thought Nancy Searle's comment was also great last month. And I can live with most of the things in the ordinance. If we were to leave the curfew at 11 o'clock, enforce it vigorously, and give enforcement a chance to work, I think we'd be, if staff could get their arms around that, I think we could actually be pretty close to passing this. I'm not sure we could pass it today, but we'd be a heck of a lot closer. As it is, I almost feel like we got further away between August and September from having a proposed ordinance that we could pass. Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any other hands up. Yeah, Carolyn.
John, could you give me an example of your recommendations for vigorous enforcement? My fear is that we have had continued examples of businesses which have been asked to comply with current regulations, which I understand are not enforceable. But I see kind of repeat offenders. And so I'm wondering what you think is an appropriate punishment.
Well, I think you sort of touched on the operative point there is we haven't enacted enforcement yet. So far there's been zero enforcement. And I think that's where this original effort came from. My idea of enforcement is that they, ticket early and often, and that they ticket, they leave very little ambiguity. The enforcement's going to work best if it's applied consistently. And so as soon as we enact enforcement, so that Mike can actually start writing tickets, I think we can start seeing the benefit of having an enforceable ordinance.
And I think sometimes, sir, a ticket is a joke. I think that receiving a ticket that you have to pay $100 fine on your multi-million-dollar construction project. I think that a penalty that would involve either, you lose your building permit for a day after the second offense. On the third offense, you lose it for a week. Same thing with a business. Business violates the noise ordinance, then you lose your, your party license for the following week. There's like one wedding has an event and it's really noisy and they don't stop. And so giving that business a ticket doesn't do them any good unless I think there's some type of a business license thing associated with it. Money in a resort town can mean nothing sometimes.
Wait, I hear you, and you may recall that I've actually been advocating for some consideration, whether it's under this ordinance or under a nuisance ordinance. First of all, we got to see how the ticketing works or doesn't work, and it is intended to be a graduated scale where the fines would be increasing. I've also been in favor of exploring, interruption of their business license, and those kinds of solutions being added. And if we could take the 11 o'clock issue off the table, which is kind of making this so adversarial, I think we could move forward and come up with some good creative things that we could add to the penalty situation. And certainly multiple offenders, we need to be able to get the point across to them. And I agree with you, if money's not getting it done, even on a graduated scale basis, I'm for stricter, for more progressive action. And so I think we're actually kind of in sync on it needs to be a, shall we say, steeply graduated penalty situation. And I'm all for, doing what we can to interrupt their ability to work on site for 5 days. Contractors hate that. That's something they're going to be super sensitive to. So I'm all for beefing up the additional section. It's just been so hard to get on the same page because of the 11 o'clock issue. So I'm hoping here today, and I talked with Roger about this some this week, I'm hoping the one thing we could do today is get past the 11 o'clock issue and just agree that, look, we're going to try to do what we can, but let's leave the curfew at 11 o'clock and let's move on and do what we can to give the ordinance teeth, and then specifically ask Maury of AMO, Mike, to enforce it vigorously. and not to cut people slack and draw the line. And I think that we could come to terms on that. And I think that it would be effective.
Great. Jen has her hand up.
On behalf of Ginny Marie.
Thank you for that. I have a question. I realize that today you graciously opened up this meeting to the public, our businesses, everyone interested. But I'm wondering, has there ever been a discussion just with for example, general managers of all the lodges? Has anyone put together a meeting so that you could sit down and really have a conversation and they could talk about their problems and their difficulties in regards to this, but also then it helps to help them with their accountability and it gives them ownership to being a part of the solution. Has anyone suggested that to date?
Well, you're the first to suggest it, as far as I know. I do not know if there has been such a conclave in the past. Cliff might know.
Well, I would be happy to put that together, but because as far as I can think, it would concern me that if they don't have a voice, even though certainly I know different people have written in and whatnot, but really if we got all of the general managers in one place together and Roger, you sat down with them, with your council or whoever you chose, I know that you could find resolution and also find commitment to accountability.
You would think so, but unfortunately, we've had a situation where there's kind of one bad actor who I know Mike Maury and his team has tried to have some direct conversation with, and we don't seem to be getting the point across. And that's troubling, difficult. I just wanted to have a quick add on for Carolyn. You know, one of the ideas that is in the Salt Lake County health regulations, which is really how the county governs noise, is that for anybody that wants an exception, they need to demonstrate to the satisfaction of the public health official that they've taken all practical steps to mitigate the impact of the event on their neighbors. And so that really has to do with setup, and that's a process that's supposed to take place in advance. I really like that idea. And I think could provide some significant relief to you and your neighborhood, Carolyn. And so even though in the county regs, that's a concept that's buried in that you want to apply for an exception to the curfew, that's an idea that I think we could carry into the ordinance. And I like that idea a lot, that you do that at the beginning of the season, you go over with the town and you say, we've done these 6 things to mitigate the impact on our neighbor. And it often involves a site inspection too. So I think that would really help in this case.
Carolyn, do you want to, nobody else has their hand up.
Sure. You know, along those same lines, John, one thing that I had considered was whether if a noise takes place within 500 feet of a residential neighborhood, could a different noise ordinance apply to that particular business? So that business would have a 10 p.m. curfew, and businesses that were not in a residential neighborhood would have an 11 p.m. curfew.
You know, I think we could have it say what we want to. You wouldn't want to undermine the ordinance by having the enforceability of the ordinance by having it be arbitrary and arbitrarily penalizing one group. But I'll kind of leave that to Cameron and Polly, whether they think that would be enforceable. I will say that if we could get past the 11 o'clock issue and start working together on this, I personally would be open to consider any solution that you want to consider. That's not saying that they're all going to end up in the ordinance, but I'm certainly open to them all. And I know that there's several others among us that like the approach of having a different ordinance for entities that are within 500 feet of residential housing. So, I mean, that's not news. And I think, you know, obviously, I know that Cliff is in favor of that as well.
Cliff is nodding. Uh, Okay, we haven't heard many people in the general public speak except Ginny Marie. Is anybody else would like to weigh in here? And if so, please raise your hand. I saw a hand flash.
Karen Travis.
Was that Karen? Oh, yes, Karen. Go ahead, Karen. Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I may not have any legs to stand on in this, but my perspective, having been a resident at Alta for 54 years, but am no longer a resident, Bob and I owned businesses, including lodging, restaurants, ski shops, and we had our Alta house built and lived in that. So I'm coming from all different directions with all different perspectives. And, you know, I arrived in 1967. Alta was a different place then, but it was still dependent on the businesses in order to survive. Once the condos and homes started being built, and once lodges were built, when I arrived, there was Peruvian Alta Lodge, Rustler Lodge, and then the little old gold miners up on the hill. And when I was working at Peruvian in those years, we did summer groups, weddings, and whatever, as did Alta Lodge and Rustler Lodge. So this is nothing new. It's just that they're able to do more of them and survive better. When people build, they knew how close they were to the businesses. They should have known what businesses were being done when. And it isn't like the lodges are out to blast all the neighbors out of the neighborhood, but they are trying to survive. So having lived up there, yes, there's helicopter noise. Yes, in the summer, there were found bombs being blown up, shaking the house off the foundation practically. But you know, the noises that we had were part of Alta. And I, for one, would never have complained, because when we built, we knew what was around us. And when we did our various events, we certainly did not go out and try to blare music everywhere. When we were at Watson's in the spring, we had great deck parties with bands on the deck. And I suppose nowadays, if they did it, they might get a complaint about it. But it brought in business, and it made for a lot of very happy skiers who would go home and rave about what a good time they had at Alta. And my outlook was always, I hope our guests go home feeling better after having been at Alta than when they arrived. And we worked very, very hard at that. So, you know, I'm not saying that we need to create a lot of red tape right now. but I think Jenny Marie's suggestion that you get the lodge owners together and hear what they think would work best for them. You're never going to come up with the perfect solution. You're trying to come up with something enforceable for Mike and his crew so that they're not on the raw end of the deal all the time. But I also don't think that treating businesses like children is going to get anything done. So on that note, think about both sides of the situation. I have lived many sides of it, and I don't think this needs to be as big a problem as we seem to be creating it to be. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Jen, I presume you have your hand up for Jenny Marie, but I'd like to see if there's any other members who haven't spoken who would like to speak.
You presumed right.
Mike, come on.
Thank you. Oops. Thank you.
You're welcome.
In reviewing the latest version of this, I see there have been some changes made to address some of the concerns we've had. I am still concerned about the focus on the helicopters, just given the, the restrictions of weather and circumstances that may dictate or a need for things to be exemptions to be granted for helicopter use, and really not having the timeline to do that 30 days out. An example would be right now is we're trying to install this lift, and steel was supposed to show up starting Monday. It's not showing up. We don't know when we're going to get the steel for that lift at this point in time, and if it may put us in a situation that we need, we would need to be running helicopters outside of the specified times to get the lift installed in time. So, and we won't know that until it comes. And so that would just be one observation I would have is, we really need some flexibility to deal with those sets of circumstances when they come. And, the 30-day time frame would really be onerous and be problematic.
If you if you were asked to have a 30-day notice, say in May, that for a period that was say from June through September, would that be adequate?
That may be adequate if we could make application for a specific time and have the latitude to work within it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Any other hands up other than Jenny Marie's? No other hands. Mike. Lori.
Well, I guess I just want to, in the limited time that we've got left, throw out, I guess, a small list of truisms that I've observed since I've been in Alta. And the first one is that the first step in compliance is awareness. So we're not going to get anywhere until people know what the rule is. And, for that reason, I'm pretty sympathetic to some of Councilmember Burns' comments. The next truism is that, enforcement goes up when compliance goes down. And that rule works in reverse as well. The next truism is resistance to the rule of law tends to go up the more the rule deviates from the norm. And, so we've got some historic practices up here that should be considered in decision making. our rules have to coexist with reality. You know, I would love it if Alta could be everything that everybody wants it to be, but I'm not sure I can make that happen. But in coexisting with reality, we've got a lot going on in a relatively confined space. We're a unique town. There's a heck of a lot going on in a pretty small block of real estate. So I think we need an abundance of reasonableness. And I guess my final truism is I've observed that when we have these kind of conflicts in Alta, when we get to the point where everybody's grumbling at about the same level, probably close to the right answer. I know that might maybe sounded a little bit political, or you know, I don't know, but I'd ask that you consider those truisms.
So would you mind providing the grumble meter so we can kind of go around and test the grumble levels?
Well, looking at my screen right now, we're not there yet.
Okay. Excuse me. All right, Jenny Marie, you're on.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really like what Mike had to say regarding being clear and transparent to the public with whatever our ordinance is so that they can easily understand it. And then compliance will either be easier or they'll choose not to comply. I wanted to thank Karen for her insight and wisdom. She probably has the best outlook of anyone, since she has really been the mother of Alta in her own way, being there for so many years. And then a question I have is, so when the helicopters are working, do they have to get a permit now to be flying at Alta?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I could talk a little bit about that. No, as municipality, we don't have an authority to regulate air operations. That's all governed by FAA rules. In this case, off airport landing.
Thank you for that, because if we get the town of Alta involved as a council, telling the Alta Lift Company, you know, when they cannot fly based on a permit, and as Mike was speaking of, steel is not here and they need it, and when it comes, it may not be convenient from a noise perspective. And secondly, I know, Roger, you mentioned a 4 months, but why would they need that at all if they're complying by what we decide or you decide in the next weeks to come? So I think we need to be careful of how much policing and rulemaking we want to do, and think more about how much accountability can we create together. And I know that sounds very dreamy and often doesn't happen, but I absolutely believe we've got to take the time to sit down with all of the general managers. And the reason is, whoever this one person is, or this one lodge that's not complying, by having that person in attendance, it will create a different dynamic and will give them an opportunity to speak and maybe be heard or not be heard. But it will at least put them on notice in a new way that this is what we're trying to do here. Keep these businesses open till 11. And I believe you really need to, that is the most important thing you need to do, is you need to have those people get together and have a conversation of objectivity. And let's look at numbers. Let's look at their bottom line and how closing at 9 or 10 or even 10:30 is going to affect their ability to stay in business. And those are the questions we need to ask. And I understand no one likes noise. I mean, Carolyn, I know where you live. You knew the proving was there when you moved in, and they were having the same thing going on then. So nothing's changed. But what's changed is perhaps the time we spend here or our tolerance. And that's what we need to take a look at, all of us. Thank you.
Okay, John has his hand up.
I had just a quick comment. You know, with respect to the Alta ski area exception, they, you know, in July we actually accepted most winter activities, avalanche mitigation or snow removal. We've expanded that a little bit to include snowmaking, but we've made the whole thing now conditional upon, it's now a conditional exception based on this clause, so long as the responsible entity makes reasonable efforts to limit disturbances across property boundaries if possible, which is kind of a fuzzy, touchy-feely thing. I'm not even sure what it means. So to me, that was like a step away from them having a simple, I actually like the exception that was in the July one better than the exception now, because in July it was just a blanket clear exception. Now we've crossed over into sort of a, generally I'm going to say fuzzy area. Tagging on to the, I thought, we've heard some great comments today, and I think the reason this is the end for me, so, by the way, so I'll try to make it quick. I think the reason that some of us are so sensitive to changing it from 11 o'clock is that we embrace the work that the lodges have done to create more summer activity and summer business. And when we think ahead to the winter and the employment struggles that all of our businesses are having, one of the most positive ways that businesses can address their winter labor situation is by expanding the calendar for the employee and creating work for them in the summer. I think this is also, so I think we don't want to discourage that. We want to help our businesses have control of their labor force. We don't want to be throwing any kind of cold water on that. And I accept what the business says in terms of whether it's important or not. I think the other thing to note is that the increase in summer activity, it's also, the ski area has had a significant increase in summer activity, which I also applaud that. And the summer activity and more year-round employees are making it work on more like a year-round basis for more people is really a plus with respect to fostering a greater sense of community, or as Sarah Gibbs likes to say, being a place that, Sarah spent 20 years of her life trying to create a greater sense of place and a greater sense of community. And to me, the increase in summer activity has really been great in fostering that sense of community, and I'd like to see that continue.
Okay, one other hand up here, someone named Margaret Burke.
I'd just like to comment on the fact that there is this notion or idea that the only change is rolling back from 11 p.m. and yet there's been an implicit and sometimes explicit statement that there has been more business activity this summer, and it's not necessarily unique to this summer, but is something that is going on year over year. I mean, we've only been here, we're neophytes, we've only been here for 22 years compared to Karen and Jenny Marie, but the summer activity at the lodges and lift company, as John Byrne has pointed out, has increased over that time period. And so what is the extent that that increase has contributed to the complaints and difficulties that residents have? And we don't know, I don't believe the council gets information from the businesses about what the difference in revenue would be to have that operation of the business over the different time periods. So the statement that it will destroy the business, we would lose the ability to retain employees, is something that we have to either accept as a statement and don't know whether or not there has been some sort of evaluation that that's the case, or that people coming to the businesses have said, if you cut me off before 11, I'm going somewhere else. So we are without data, which is something that I think Jenny Marie was saying, that we We know that there would be a loss of dollars if we shut it down earlier. So I'm not sure that we know that to be true. And so I challenge that as a statement of fact, even though there may be some information out there. I don't know that it's been shared with the town, and I don't know that it's required to be shared, because as I understand it, the only thing the businesses do is identify their sales tax revenue, and that's aggregated. And so I don't know that the town knows how much each business is contributing towards the sales tax revenue that the town has. Thank you.
We only have a couple of minutes left here. And I'd like to see if anybody who hasn't spoken, it looks like Sheridan is holding her hand up. You want to say something, Sheridan?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to all participants, everyone who's taken the time to pull me aside and share their perspective with me, and everyone who's written into the town and spoken with the town about this issue. It's contentious. I do think underrepresented in this conversation is the natural sound of Alta, which I want to always protect, which is the sound of Alta that isn't created by human beings. The sound of Little Fountain Canyon Creek, the sound of the squirrels, the sound of watching deer that are silent as I walk by. I think that those values rarely hold as much sway in these conversations. They need to. They're a critical part of who we are as a community. And so today, I want to give Mike a win, Mike Morey, in terms of actually having teeth on something. I could vote for 10:30, I could vote for 11. I think we just need to set a time, have a consistent ordinance. I can live with the rewrite if we dump the 10-second loudness, because I'm sure I'd exceed that continuously. And I could live with the original ordinance with an 11 o'clock deadline and a 7 a.m. deadline, or 10:30 and 6:30 respectively, just to move this issue forward. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're going to wind it up there because of the end of the hour. I would like to make a request, and that is I'd like to get some feedback on this format. That is, as far as I know, we haven't had a kind of a public discussion like this before. And if you like it or don't like it, send me an email, or if you, either way. I'd just like to see, because I suspect there'll be issues that'll come up like this again. rburke@townobalta.com. All right, so I hereby.
I'm going to start moving people, Roger. So this is just going to take me a few minutes to get.
Okay, well, let's take a 5-minute break before we start the next, before we start the town council. Okay, that work, Jen?
That does. Thank you so much.
All right, nature break. Okay. 4:03 Mountain Time. I'd like to call the meeting, the September 14th Alta Town Council meeting to order. We do not have a physical anchor location per my letter of September 1st of this year for the health and safety of the community. And let's see. Got to take a look at the agenda. And I seem
Citizen
to
input is first.
say again.
Citizen input.
Oh, citizen input. Are there any citizens who would like to make any comments at this point?
If I may, can I make a couple announcements?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. First of all, we did receive 2 written comments, one from Margaret Burke and one from Ginny Marie Linus, both regarding the noise ordinance. Those are going to be attached to the official minutes for this meeting as Exhibit A. And then just as a update for the council, I wanted to kind of review the new online comment form and just make sure we were kind of, this is new for us. I really want to frame it as a additional tool for the public to use to submit comments or questions to the town. It's not replacing anything. You can always call us. You can always email us. This is just another tool that's available on our website. Just so that council and the public knows what we do when we receive those comments is it kind of depends. If we get a question and it's pointed at a certain staff member that can respond to that, staff will use discretion to channel that question to the appropriate person or entity, or provide you information on a meeting, whatever you need there. If it is a comment, and there is a button when you're going through the comment form that allows you to elect to make your comments part of the meeting record. So meaning the next town council meeting. If you select that button, and what I will do is just like I did with Margaret and Ginny Marie a few minutes ago, I will say that a comment has been received. When we receive those comments, we immediately, as soon as staff get them, we forward them to the council. Those comments will be, once they're shared with the council, I announce them at the council meeting. And then we also will attach them as Exhibit A. If it is a comment that you just want to submit to the town that doesn't need to be a part of the meeting record, it will still be forwarded to the council. They will receive it. If council wants to respond to a member of the public that's commented or asked a question that they get forwarded to, you can certainly do so. I just ask that you follow the public meeting rules or whatever, and you just respond to them individually. You're welcome to include staff. You don't have to, but just make sure that you don't reply all when you reply to the individual. Does anybody have any questions or comments for me on that kind of program? It is new,
Yes.
So
please.
Sheridan.
Thank you so much for creating that. That's such a valuable tool for our community. I might have missed a nuance of what you just said, Jen. So when we get comments that are asked to be disseminated to the council or that name a specific council person, was that what you were speaking about? In other words, will we, if it's asked to be disseminated to the council, will you automatically do that? Or is the onus on us as council to be reading these comments online?
No, these comments are not stored online. They will get forward, all of the comments coming in, Molly and I will forward to the council when we receive them. So what we used to do was I would batch them and send the council a group of comments. We're not going to do that anymore. I didn't say that. So we're not going to do that anymore. What we're going to do is on a day-by-day basis, as individual comments come in, those will get forwarded to the entire council.
Thanks for the clarification. Sorry, I missed that. Thanks.
No, that's okay. I probably didn't articulate it very well. So thanks for asking.
It's on me.
But they may or may not be related to any upcoming meeting, right?
Correct.
Okay. Any other citizen input? I wasn't,
And we do have one person that told me they would like to make a comment, Gloria Lee. So maybe we can start with her and
Okay.
then we can go from there. Gloria, I am going to promote you to be a panelist again. So you're going to go through that same process we did a few minutes ago, and you can address the council. Carolyn, did you have a question for me that, well, Gloria comes over?
Yeah.
you're still muted. Okay.
Sorry, I
Shoot.
think you said something like if a member of the public addresses us personally, we're not allowed to address them back.
No, I did not mean to say that. If what I was trying to say is if the council wants to respond to an individual that has submitted a comment, that you're welcome to do that.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
We could get a comment through the website that could be directed to a specific council member, and we will direct that to you.
Okay. Right.
Does that help?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were saying that we weren't allowed to respond.
No,
somebody-
you are, just don't include the other, only include up to only one council member. So we just say none, just to make it easy. But you could include one other council member and be okay, but not the full council.
Okay. Thank you, Jen.
You're very welcome. And let's see, I lost, oh, there she is.
No,
Hi,
Gloria Lee is on board. You want to say something,
Perfect.
Gloria Lee?
Yes, I do. Hi, thank you, Jen, and thank you, Mayor Burke. And I was going to make a joke about being a longtime Alta skier and a first-time town council listener. So, but I had a nice lunch with Jen last month, and she invited me to come to these council meetings to find out what was going on. And so I am with Friends of Alta, and I haven't met many of you yet, and I hope to meet more people. My history with Alta goes back more years than I care to admit. I was an Alta Lodge employee many years ago and have skied at Alta consistently, yearly since then. But the only thing I wanted to say today is that we have an event coming up with Friends of Alta. It is a star party that we hope to have on September 24th. It goes from 7:30 p.m. to 9, weather dependent, at the Catherine's Trailhead parking lot. So we will be sending out invitations shortly, so keep an eye out for that. And if you have any questions for me, fire away.
Very good. That's just the kind of citizen input I wanted to hear. A party.
Party.
Yeah. So, okay. Anybody else? All right, in that case, let's move on to Dan Kettner and Tom Schneider on the Alta Resort Shuttle.
I am moving them over. Just take a minute. We've got a couple other people that I'm moving as well.
And maybe it would set the table if I just said a couple of things while you're bringing in those participants. I know we talked about having me give a presentation on this, and for the council, I've been sort of meeting with Dan Kettner and Tom Schneider and some others as part of my role on the ACVB board of directors. ACVB applied for a grant to cover anticipated cost increases in offering the Alta Resort Shuttle this winter. ACVB didn't win that grant, and so since ACVB got in the conversation with Dan and Tom about how to close that gap, I've sort of remained in the conversation. I won't say too much about the details of the current situation because Tom and Dan can certainly provide more sort of credible testimony on why costs are increasing. But anyways, we do have Dan Kettner, who's administered the Alta Resort Shuttle program for several years. We have Tom Schneider of Alta Shuttle, who's been operating the program, as most of you know. And then we have a couple of other shuttle program stakeholders, including Frank Perkins from Canyon Services and Stephen Parker from the Blackjack HOA board.
And Frank, I'm trying to move you over, but
can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm back on the coast of Maine. I apologize.
Okay.
I'm not.
Well,
We got the full continent covered here.
All right, I'll join as a
Okay.
fan, maybe.
Come up. Dan, Tom, who's up first?
Well, Tom, would you like to tell everybody about the price increase and, how it came about? And that sort of gets us to where we are right now. Tom, can you hear me?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so I'll just recap here real fast. So we've been running the resort shuttle for the last 11 years. We've burned through 2 vehicles already, and we need to buy another vehicle. They just wear out too fast. After 11 years, we just can't keep doing it for what we've been charging. We can't subsidize it ourselves anymore. We need to recover our costs and make a little bit of money to do it. So we raised the price for next year substantially. We encouraged bids to go out because of course we'd love to have someone do it cheaper if they can, but apparently we didn't really find anyone that could do it cheaper. Dan can speak to that. So we've offered to do it for the price we need to recover our costs. We just bought a vehicle. They're almost impossible to find. After a conversion, a used one's $110,000. And it'll last 5 or 6 years before it can just become a secondary vehicle. So that's kind of the background of what's going on. On top of that, we started the night shuttle last year that Visit Salt Lake is funding, which the public really liked and would like to see it keep going. But we've got at least a $32,000 shortfall for us to keep running both shuttles for this year. So that's why we're on the agenda, I guess.
So I'll speak a little bit. We have gone to the shuttle partners who've historically helped fund us this shuttle, and everybody's in for what they paid last year. And it was hard to get them to where I got them last year. So I don't really think I can get a lot more from the View condominiums, the Village at Sugar Plum, the property owners. We'd like to ask everybody for more money, but I just don't think I'll get too far with the landowners. We have Alta Ski Lifts that we'd like to, they're a shareholder too. Perhaps they could see to their way to give some more money. The town's increased their donation by 50% so far. They were at $6,000 a year, or you're at $6,000 a year now. You've upped it to $9,000, which is great, but we're still short. Like Tom said, close to $30,000. The funny thing is, we pretty much have the night shuttle covered, and if Snowbird kicks in, they've been asked to participate in that, and if they kick in $6,000 or $5,000, we'll be really close with the night shuttle. What we're struggling for is to get the day shuttle, which everybody knows the benefits of, to get that going just to a minimal level. So that, I think that's what we just want to make all of you people aware of.
Dan, can I ask, it's Carolyn, can I ask a question? I'm allowed to do that, right, Jen? Okay. So I recognize the benefits of the shuttle, but I'm wondering who you think should pay for it. Like who benefits from it? I understand there's individual riders, and of course people benefit from being, transported from one place to another, but who does it actually benefit? Who do you think should pay for it?
Well, one of the people that benefit from it, or the entities that benefit from it, is Alta Ski Lifts, because it goes around and picks up a lot of people who could ski in, ski out Snowbird, but it gives them a ride over to Alta, and they probably want to ski at Alta. Now, another thing that it does and provides a benefit is it allows a lot of people not to rent cars. And the night shuttle also dovetails with that. For people who are coming to stay in the canyon, for visitors, they really don't need to rent a car. They can use the shuttle for their daily transportation to go skiing, and then they can use the night shuttle to go around at night if they have to. So you could say that not as many cars in the canyon is a benefit for everybody. So we all get to enjoy that. It obviously benefits the people that live at these and that live or visit these different places. You know, the View condominiums, the Village of Sugar Plum, all the houses along the bypass road. That's the main thrust of the benefit. You know, those people are seeing the most benefit, and they participate. Frank can tell you, we all pay for that service. And in the past, what we've paid has pretty much covered the cost. But now, as Tom's saying, with his need to increase, and he's run this thing on a shoestring. Any money he's made, and we go back and forth on this in the past 15 years, has all gone to maintain the vehicles, and there's nothing in a slush fund. You know, he's going out on a limb buying a new $100,000 vehicle, and so I think his cost increase is totally justified. We just have to figure out how to make it work.
Sounds like the ski areas, Snowbird and Alpha, should pay for it, because then they can charge somebody else for the parking space.
Yeah.
I guess I would just offer that I think there is, I mean, we can always talk about in any sort of public transportation context, we can talk about who benefits from it, or, who chooses to use it, et cetera. It does operate like free public transportation. And part of the reason it does that is because the town contributes. And that's sort of one of the stipulations of the town's contribution, is that it's, we're not funding a service that's only available to certain people or certain classes of people. So absent that, regardless of who uses it or benefits from it, one season or another, absent the service, we won't have that free public transportation service in Alta. I mean, you can ride a UTA bus fare free in the Upper Canyon, but that's obviously much more of a blunt instrument than a shuttle driven by folks who know the local roads and are on a schedule that brings them down into the neighborhoods. And that's my comment.
Excuse me. The attribute that it stands out to me is that it relieves people who have rented a place in West Alta from renting a car. I mean, that's $100 a day roughly just to have a car, and not to mention all the contribution to congestion and parking and so forth. So that's one of the clear beneficiaries is the renters. So I think, Dan, what I might ask you is to try to write down what you think might be a fair distribution of how this thing should be financed, and submit it to us.
Sure,
Not on the spot. Not on the spot.
Adrian seems to have a comment.
You get 2 for 1 here. Sorry. But I think.
Adrian, I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm ready to say something whenever.
Okay, let me just add something and then you go, Frank. How's that?
That sounds great.
Okay. I just want to say 2 things. I know that the homeowners who live on the bypass road utilize that shuttle quite a bit, so they don't have to drive to Alta. They are using that to get around. We have employees who use it to get around as well, so they don't have to have a car up there. If they need to get from one part of Alta to another part, they're certainly using it. On certain days, there are employees who are have ski passes at Alta who are skiing the Keyhole. They're using that as a way to get around the canyon. And then the other thing is, I think we can't emphasize enough how important it is for tourism. Mike asked us to, calculate the number of beds we had, and I think we alone have 165 beds. So all those people are asking us questions about, is there transportation? Do I need a car? How do I get to skiing? And they're all paying sales tax. So they are using the service, but it's increasing our marketability to be able to offer them free transportation in the canyon. So.
Got it. Stephen Parker has his hand up.
Thank you. I was going to say pretty much exactly what Adrian said. As a homeowner, I think it definitely benefits everyone in the canyon, not just renters, and just decreases the overall traffic. And especially on a snow day when things are sloppy, but in general, the fewer cars moving on roads in the upper canyon, or the whole canyon for that matter, is a great benefit, I think, to the whole. So that was my main comment, that there are multiple additional users other than renters.
Got it. Frank, did you want to say something?
Yeah. You hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I would totally support Dan and Adrian. I think it's essential, not because I benefit from it, but it's needed in Alta. I've been at this for a long time, and Adrian said it perfectly. People call, do I need a car? We used to say yes, just to go to dinner at night in the Steak Pit or the Alta Lodge. But that's important. But just the whole concept of the town of Alta supporting it. Let me give you a quick history. Anno put us all together 20 years ago. Dan, tell me, maybe it was 15, and said, I want to do this. And the reason was he knew he had a huge clientele in Sugar Plum Powder Ridge, and they could come to Alta rather than just skiing to Snowbird, which was genius. And it's worked really well. But I think it's really short, my opinion only. It's short-sighted to cut it off because it's the extra $50 or $100. And I certainly understand Carolyn's position. She benefits from it in no way other than her neighbors do. And we have a lot of people that feel that way, but there's a lot of owners that use it. I just think you look at any resort, Park City is so much bigger than us and not even comparable, but they have the bus service. My opinion is it's essential. If there was any way the town could administer a small tax on the one they do, then we all pay for it and it gets it gets passed down to the customer. But to look at it individually is tough. I just think I get so many compliments, and people have changed their behavior because of it. It's a great service. And Tom, you don't have to apologize for your cost. You do a great job, and that's the cost. And I think we just decide whether the community is better off with it or without it. Personally, a lot of you go, I ain't spending the $100, and I understand that. But I think it's essential. I really do. And I don't speak for Dave Fields. I know David very well. I don't want to promise anything, but his whole thing right now is he knows that history, and it was built, no offense, to take customers from him. And he said, Frank, I need more information. And Tom gave us some stats. I think we stay with Dave. He's a real fair guy. And if you show him next year how many visits at night during the day that you're not taking skiers from him, he'll participate. But that's, again, don't quote me on Dave said this. That's my opinion. He doesn't quite see the benefit because he thinks he could be losing customers. So anyway, that's a side issue. I think it's a fabulous service. I never envisioned it to be the success that it is. And it works for at least all our properties. And I agree with Dan and Adrian. Thank you.
Can I ask Frank a question?
Sure.
Frank, how does our contribution work? You threw out $100. Are we giving $100 per house, or how's that?
Yes, you're $100 per house for the year in, I think it's 8 houses is that's in your budget.
And right. So it's not billed to us individually, it's charged against the HOA?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And do I understand correctly, I guess, Tom, basically the charge is, the cost is doubling, and
55% more, basically, from 45
55% more.
Yeah, roughly 55% more.
I will say that over the years, I think the level of service has really gotten dialed in, and I actually like the level of service now. It's not too much, it's not too little, and certainly through the institution of the parking reservation system, a lot of us, who maybe can't quite get our arms around planning what we want to do next weekend, rely on the service now. It's either walk over or rely on the service because, day of parking reservations are hard to come by. So I can tell you in our neighborhood, we see more value and we're having more use of it, which is, is a good thing. And Frank, I wouldn't have any trouble with committing our HOA members to double their $100 to $200. And I would encourage the town to at least keep up with the 55% increase in cost.
Thanks, John.
Unmute myself. Carolyn, your hand's up.
Yeah, so Frank, just to be clear, I really have enjoyed the service. I think that it's great. I agree with what Chris Colley said, that it does seem like a public service. And my questions are more around like, who should really pay for it? So it's interesting to hear John's perspective, because John's neighborhood is not, in general, sir, a walk to Alta Lifts, right? And so in general, Powder Ridge is a walk to Alta Lifts. So when it comes to voting for Powder Ridge and whether people who live there walk to the lifts, or whether we're paying in Powder Ridge for people who choose to rent their place, for the renters to enjoy the transportation. So it's a little bit hard for me when it comes to my individual concerns, which is not what I'm here to discuss. But when I talk about Powder Ridge and whether I think individual people in my neighborhood should pay for it, that's where I get stuck. So that's where my questions were directed. Like, I feel like Chris is right. It feels like a public service. And I think it's great for people who enjoy Alta and Snowbird, and to have this public bus service and to have it running around. So I'm just not, I don't think my neighborhood should pay for it, but I feel like the town should pay for it. But I don't necessarily think the town is the one who benefits from it. I think the resort benefits from it. So I'm trying to figure out what percentage belongs what place and why. And I agree with everyone's comments about it actually does serve everybody if there are fewer cars on the road. So that's just kind of what's going through my head. So Frank, it wasn't an anti comment.
I totally understand, but I don't disagree. As I said, I have lots of owners that feel exactly like you do. I would just say, to me, what's the town of Alta? It's a government that is there for the people and the citizens. And so my opinion only is that it benefits a lot of people. Maybe not you, but I know that Ken Holland is a snowboarder and he uses it all the time. So there's no question that Powder Ridge has the wonderful benefit of being ski in and ski out to Alta. But and I can't overcome that one other than to say I think it benefits a lot of people. So I appreciate the comment. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna have to wind this up. I'm gonna give Chris the last word.
So I was actually gonna try to prompt Dan or Tom to just describe what the who the funding partners are and have been, since it's basically been the same entities for a while, and roughly how they assess the the fee that each entity is paid. I think you went into those details a little bit earlier, but maybe just to close us out, who are the lodging properties that participate and other entities, and what are they?
Tell you what, if I could modify that, I asked Dan to produce what he thought would be a sensible, fair distribution of what should be charged to whom. And if you could add to that what is charged to whom now, which is what Chris is asking for, that would help. So a couple of columns, a bunch of rows as to who's chipping in for what.
You got it. I'll get it to you this week.
Okay.
You
Thank
guys
you,
are
everybody.
wonderful. I mean, you do track every rider though, right? I know when I've had the pleasure, and I do take advantage of the shuttle. So that data should be there, right?
Yeah, can I answer that? Yeah,
Go ahead, Tom.
so over 20,000 people use the shuttle. I mean, I'm sure some people use it more than once, but were more than 20,000 riders last year.
Wow.
And you got to realize that the day shuttle, yes, primarily benefits the ski lift company. The ski lift company pays more than anybody for the day shuttle, except for Visit Salt Lake, which kicked in $25,000 last year, and they're kicking in $25,000 this year, and it'll probably be the last year they give in. So you have to realize you got to be prepared for that. In addition to the increase that we're charging, you got to realize the night shuttle is going to go away unless the town figures out a way to provide that service. The night shuttle the ski resort gets nothing from the night shuttle. The Snow Pine Lodge, the P-Dog at the Peruvian, and the Snowbird restaurants are who benefit from the night shuttle. I don't know if you want to think about a tax for rental. I mean, I don't know. It's not my job to say where the money should come from, but you got to look at, if you want this to continue, there has to be another option. Somebody has to figure out whether there's going to be a tax for, the rental units or something, or the shuttle's going to die. And I'm just being blunt when I say that, but we can't really kick it down the road much farther.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's close this section of the agenda off and move over to Mike Vaughn with update on the ski area situation. I don't see him. Oh, there he is.
He's
Okay.
on his way.
All right, there we go.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Just a note on the Alta shuttle. I was under the understanding that everyone was just going to pay the same percentages they paid last year, which would cover all the costs, but and that's what we had committed to do. So don't know where that's gone to. So we'll see what they come back with. In regards to ski area information, our target opening day we have set as November 18th, which is a Friday before Thanksgiving, conditions permitting. We're looking at a little different change for the closing of the season this year. Typically, we've had a closing day and then we've opened for one additional weekend. We're going to change that for the 22-23 season. We're going to stay open daily to April 23rd. We won't have a time where we shut down and reopen. We'll just run every day through the 23rd, conditions permitting, of course. And then what we have yet to determine is if we will have Supreme open through all that time or not. We've been working with the parking reservations and fine-tuning those for this coming season. Changes in that arena are daytime reservations will now be required on Fridays, in addition to Saturdays and Sundays and holiday periods. Reservations will start December 16th and run through the end of the season, April 23rd. The Sunnyside lift, all of the footings are in the cement's in the ground, and we're waiting for steel to show up. We do have a little bit of a concern. The steel was supposed to have all been here by the 12th of September, and we've only seen one load of steel show up. So we're actively working with the lift manufacturer, trying to figure out what's going on and what the delays are. They are struggling, as with the rest of America, in having sufficient staff to get all their work done. We have, as we speak, we're installing our sprung structure out in front of the Albion ticket office, which is a structure that will help us in dealing with ski school, particularly the ski school kids programs. Kind of a temporary structure that we'll put in place there and use until we can get through the process and look at expanding potentially the Albion Day Lodge to help us accommodate that in the future. We've completed this summer. We completed a little work up by the campground. We rerouted the home run outrun to, not the home run, the rock and roll outrun to bypass campsite 9. And we've also put in a new service road to the Supreme Lift that bypasses the cabin area, so that we weren't running all of our heavy equipment and trucks through there. So it's a little change to the Supreme Access Road. In addition, we've have undertaken our Sleepy Hollow terrain change project. It involves working with the erosion gullies, doing some adjustment to terrain there. It's probably the biggest earth moving project we've ever undertaken, actually. And that is about, we're wrapping up what we're going to be able to get done this season. We'll still have some work to do there next season, but I think if you go over and ski that area, coming down Challenger or number 9 or swinging over there from Sleepy Hollow, you'll find a significant improvement this season as we go into the winter. Now, UDOT came out with their preferred alternative of the gondola. We're continuing to work with UDOT. I'm meeting with UDOT on Monday to see how we can address the issues of, the traction law, roadside elimination of roadside parking, queue-up lanes for cars, more efficient avalanche control work in the canyon for early mornings. The things that are really, we're trying to focus on and not take the attention off these things that can make a difference, particularly in the short term. While we're living now, while they work on their longer term solution. And so any support that we can get from the town and those trying to move forward those issues, I think is beneficial for the Alta community as a whole. And I think that would be my report, unless you have any questions.
Any questions from the council?
I guess I have just one question about parking, Mike. It seems like that's become such an accepted phenomenon for many ski resorts. Have you received less public outcry this year, or has there been a move for people to be able to get weird special parking permits or anything like that?
No special requests. There was a public outcry about the change in November, early December last year. The tide of that turned fairly quickly as people experienced the parking and how it changed the experience in the canyon. We received at least 1 or 2 comments almost every day, February through the end of the season, about the parking system and how supportive they were out of it. And a lot of people apologizing for their comments they made in November and early December. So it, very, very well received. We've probably had 6 or 7 other ski areas come and get a better understanding of what we're doing and are implementing parking, similar reservation systems in their ski areas too, this coming season. So it seems to be, it's gathered some traction. I continue to work on Snowbird to kind of, get on board on their end. When I talked to Dave last, he's probably a year or 2 out still for making that move, but he does see that being the way of the future, as there's just more, when there's more demand than there is available parking during certain periods of time. It's the only way you can manage it effectively.
I agree. And no I was just wondering with the Snowbird Super Parking Pass that people can purchase, whether you had gotten some flack for people wanting their special front row seats or reserved parking permanently.
We have had requests from people that they'd like to have a pass. It's a season pass and they don't have to make a reservation, but we have chosen not to go there. So that's kind of where we're not looking to change the daytime parking scenario. Price will stay the same for this year, and the system will work the same as it did last year, other than adding Fridays in.
Great, thank you.
Sheridan, did you want to say something or talk?
Thank you. I was going to ask a question about biking trails, but I'm going to take that up with one of your
Okay,
colleagues. Thank you.
that's later. I'll have something to say about that later. Okay, anything else for Mike?
Yeah, just one quick question. In conjunction with the parking changes, last year was the introduction of the 8 o'clock canyon opening, and I think that was a very successful change. It's really helped those of us who live here in Alta, because it just takes a couple hours for the parking lot to fill up. So there's at least a window in the morning where we're, having just a terrific, the first hour of the day has been great. Are you expecting to continue with the 8 o'clock road opening?
We do have a slight change there. I'm sorry I missed that. We're looking at moving that to 7:30, as far as when the parking lots will open this year. One of the challenges we had, or one of the agreements we made with UDOT and the Forest Service, was we needed to watch that opening time and make sure we didn't create some congestion, in that before 8 in the town and on the road. And we had a little bit of that. And we just had people that found it a little challenging to gauge when they come up the canyon to try to be here by 8. And so we're moving to 7:30 and draw the line at 7:30. We're really not going to advertise that. We're just still going to continue to say that reservations start at 8, but the signage in town will say 7:30 is when the lots will open. But we intend to keep them closed until 7:30 so we can do snow removal and such like we did before.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike and all. Let's move on to item 5, which is approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the August meeting, the treasurer's report, and the staff reports. I believe that the protocol here is that we have to move to approve it. Is that right, Cameron? Okay, so I'll entertain a movement. I'll entertain a motion to approve the staff agenda.
Seconded.
Okay. All right.
I had one quick comment on Jen's report. It says that you're working on the 2021 audit. I think you meant to say the 2022 audit. The 2021 audit's already been completed.
Yes. Thank you for catching that. I didn't pick up on that, but I can update that. And then Mayor, you had a couple changes. I just pulled up the draft minutes. You had a couple typos that I think people wanted to address in the minutes from last meeting.
Yeah, and let me say that in principle, minor typos should not be subject to this formal process. We'll just fix them and pretend like the whole thing is
Yeah, they're very minor. Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to, if there's just non-substantive typos, council members can just, or anyone can just notify Jen and she can fix them.
Got it. Good.
On her own. That's fine.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion of the consent agenda?
Couple of things,
Okay.
please, Mayor.
Sure, go ahead, Sheridan.
Sorry. So John, you had mentioned that assessors' valuations of houses didn't mean an increase in the taxes that we could see without a truth and taxation hearing. And I know that that's challenging, but I wonder if we could sort of stay up on top of that, or how onerous would that be, and what's the dollar value in having it, I guess, overall, if you have a sense of that. And I'm sorry I'm hitting you with this at the
Oh,
meeting.
no,
It was
that's
great.
okay. I can't quite understand what you're asking for. The people that are going to do, I mean, the entities that are going to do a tax increase and they're going to have a hearing on that, or I'm not sure. I
So
understand.
sorry, I wasn't very clear. In reading your submission, you talked about the challenges of having increased, that the town doesn't see much tax increase unless it's a new build,
Right.
unless we were to actually look at the assessor's change of value of current properties and do a truth and taxation meeting or hearing to actually change the taxes that they were charged, if I understood your minutes correctly, or your notes, and I might not have.
Right. So if you've got a house up here and you pay $50 in tax, but they double your assessment, we have to lower our rate
right
to get that same $50. We don't even get inflation. So if we want to, I mean, if we leave the rate the same, that would give us more money on your increased valuation. Then we'd have to have a truth and taxation hearing, and it would be fun because we would say, we're not changing our rate. We're leaving it the same, but we're going to get a lot more money from you. Now, I missed something though. What am I leaving out?
I guess I understood from your department report that we don't do that we don't actually go after that increased assessed value, because I thought it was implied in your notes, and I'm just asking for clarification. Maybe we do get that increased tax value because we don't change the tax rate, but the assessed value has gone up.
We have to change the tax rate to keep the same amount of dollars coming in. And we're not going after the increased value this year. We decided not to have a truth in taxation. But another thing, I send all of our building permits down to the assessor, and we don't get anything for a remodel or an upgrade, but the new homes and any additions, we get new growth. So this year we chose not to do a truth in taxation and collect extra money. But we could have, but we had such a good year last year anyway with sales tax, thank you to the ski area, that we didn't really need to do that this year.
Greg, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, John, I want to ask two follow-on clarification questions. One, if we go through the truth in taxation, how much of a difference do you think it might make to our budget each year? And the second one is, how much work is it for the staff to actually prepare for that?
It depends. I mean, we can raise the rate as much as we want, and we can pick how much money we want to get up to the state mandated limit. And we are we're pretty low as far as tax rates compared to everybody else in Salt Lake County. I don't really know where we are, but we could raise quite a bit. So it's like, how much money do you want? We raise the tax, the certified tax rate by that amount. And it just requires us setting a public hearing, attending the public hearing, and then we have to do comparisons on an average cost on the average value of a business in town, the average value of a home in town, what this increase that we're requesting, what that will mean to them, how much extra they're going to pay.
Thanks.
Okay, John.
I think there was a lot of support from the budget committee and staff to take an approach here where we would do a truth and taxation hearing every year and at least try to keep inflation on our side, since so many of our costs are obviously tied to inflation, including labor, which has been one of the more rapidly rising costs. So I think we were on track this year to go ahead and have a truth and taxation hearing. And then there were a few externalities that just made it seem like, let's punt for next year. But we tried to give people a heads up that speaking here as a member of the budget committee. I know Elise is not on the call today. I think there was a lot of momentum in the direction of just trying to have it be a regular increase. That way you're keeping a regular increase in the rate, and that way you're keeping it moderate and consistent, and you're avoiding some big giant raise at some point. So if we did it every year, we could probably keep it in the 3 to 5% kind of area. I think this year, among the things was, the timing of Piper's departure. The budget it would have held up the filing of the budget for the new year because you hold it up a couple of months. And it just seemed and then also our general budget situation was pretty good. It just seemed like the expedient and pragmatic thing to do at the time to blow it off. But we did want to sort of put everybody on alert that in the long run, most of us, including I think John Goldner, myself, and Elise, and I think Jen, all think that a consistent approach to truth in taxation would make the most sense for the town over the 10 or 20 year horizon. Just try to do it a small adjustment every year.
That's right. And it's less painful to do it like that, but politics, not in our little town, seriously, but downtown, people want to put off or elected officials want to put off tax raises or tax increases in election years. And truly, we don't have that. But so then after a couple of years go by, the new officials have to do a bigger tax rate, which is really disturbing. But I think the Clerks Association, the Association of City Managers, people have gone to the legislature numerous times in the past and said, can we just get inflation? Can we get an increase automatically without doing a truth in taxation public hearing and going through that process, and been denied? We don't even get inflation. So it probably is a better idea to do minor tax increases every year so that people are used to it, so they don't get hit with some giant thing down the way, like John said.
Ray, you look like you wanted to say something.
Nope.
Okay. Okay, did that satisfy your question? I think it was it shared?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
It's great to see you.
Okay, yes, indeed. All right, with that, I would like to, if there are no more questions on the departmental reports, which we
Sorry,
just-
Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was hoping that I might impose upon Jen to clarify some of the findings about the use of e-bikes in Alta and what the Forest Service regulations are. And yeah, just a quick gloss. Her report said everything, but it would be helpful, I think, to hear it in the meeting, if you'll all indulge me.
Let me pull up the map because I think that's a good tool. So we asked the Forest Service what the rules were on e-bikes, and they have they sent us some information. Basically, e-bikes are managed as a motorized vehicle. And so right now, the Forest Service only authorizes e-bikes to be on the summer road and here the campground. And really, I mean, that is the extent of their use in Alta. What else specifically, Sheridan, do you want me to hit upon?
Sheridan, you're muted.
No, she's trying to unmute.
Oh.
Are you allowed to ride it downhill if you don't have the motor on?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I apologize. So I think it strikes a lot of folks as counterintuitive that they can't ride the 2 tracks within Alta ski lifts. Operational footprint. And we had some clarification from the lifts on that from Coleman, and I appreciate him talking about that, but we have some remedies as well, right? Potential remedies?
Yes, so the Forest Service authorizes, a special use permittee like the ski area, if they so choose. They can apply to the Forest Service if they would like to allow certain uses. And so that is an option if the ski area chose to go down that path.
And local jurisdictions have some traction as well, right? Didn't the Forest Service have an example? Started to sort of play ping pong with you here, Jen, but I thought that the Forest Service documents that you attached suggested that local jurisdictions, and they gave an example of Lake Tahoe, had some legislative authority on this.
That may be, but in that specific instance, you'd have to understand whether there was a special use permit in place over the area or not. I think you, in the situation where if the area is within a special use permit, that would be the right path to go forward with applying to the Forest Service. I don't know that I'd have to look into this, but it seems a little funny to me that the town would apply without the ski area and them having consent of what's being done on their special use permit. It seems a little.
Sure, I wasn't suggesting that. I'm trying not to break the hearts of colleagues that suspect that I've just yanked from them the ability to ride everywhere in Alta that they'd had before. I'm not trying to push that kind of an agenda. I'd like e-bikers to have access to places that trucks can drive. It seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, I mean, I will admit that I was, when you originally came to me a few months ago about this question, I didn't have the right impression of what was actually allowed. And it took us doing this research and getting the Forest Service's official opinion on it to understand actually where e-bikes are and are not allowed. But what we want to do moving forward, I think, should be a conversation between the town, at least in the ski area, to start off with.
I think our ability to do it would be without the ski area would only apply to private lands in the town that aren't owned by the ski area. So that's a pretty small, it's a pretty small amount of land. I don't even know of any trails that would meet that. So I think the best option, if there's a strong move in this direction from the town, would be to lobby the ski area to make a little bit more of the land within the special use permit available.
Yeah, good point. Okay, any other questions? Cameron, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to try and give a little bit of general background. The e-bike issue came up with the Forest Service years ago, not that many years ago, but years ago, because people had requested an accommodation under the ADA to access essentially mountain bike trails or hiking trails that had some disability, and the e-bike allowed them to access those trails similarly to everyone else. The problem that came out in that process is that there are many different classes of e-bikes. So some are pedal assist, some are purely throttle driven. There's no pedaling or rider assist to it. Some of the tracked wheelchairs and other tracked mobility vehicles were also included in this. And so because of the wide range of vehicles, the Forest Service just said, if it has a motor, it's a motor vehicle. It can only go where motor vehicles can go. And so I think this process will change over time as the pedal assist mountain bikes perhaps are distinguished differently, but I think historically that's the reason and the process of why this came to be the way it is.
Interesting. Okay, any other questions on department reports? Okay, so let's call a question here. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay. 4-0. Mayor's report. First of all, I've already done this personally, but I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Elise Morgan for effectively chairing last month's meeting. The big latest news, of course, is the EIS recommendation for Gondel B as their preferred choice, and an open comment period running from until October 17th. There's not unanimity in this whole community on what is favored. ASL and some of the businesses are in favor of that choice. some of the residences, I don't have a count for this, have taken a stance for other alternatives. The town established a position in the last administration that preferred other alternatives, and that stance has not changed. There's been a very active construction season, as discussed in our noise discussion. There's been a countywide slowdown in town movement, and there's been a slogan that's been applied in a video of several mayors in their town saying, basically obey the speed limits. I don't know where that's actually shown up on the media, but we contributed to it with a picture of the Alta sign and me saying something as profound as slow down in Alta. Sarah at ACE, Sarah Gibbs put out a plea to cancel your reservations if you can't attend an event, since there's often waiting lists. And I have been on those waiting lists in the past and not been able to get into an event myself. And so I'd like to second that. If you signed up for some ACE event that has limited capacity and you can't make it, just let her know. We had a very good meeting with the new fire chief, whose name is Dominic Burchett, on last Thursday, or Thursday the 1st. Mike Bond, Chris, and Dave Fields accompanied me. Wildfire protection was one of the big topics of the discussion. And staffing for the Little Cottonwood Canyon Station was reviewed, and it appears that there will be a fourth firefighter EMT at that station, probably not starting till next June, but it looks like the money is going to be allocated to do that, which will increase its ability to serve our community. Don Burchett is really an approachable and engaging guy, and we have a good relationship there. Chris, did you want to say anything about chipper days that are in that discussion?
Sure. Yeah. Like I joined the mayor because I recommended that we just highlight with the new chief wildland fire mitigation. And one of the things that we've done consistently over the last few years is work with UFA to offer what we call chipper days, which is when homeowners gather hazardous fuel materials from around the property and stack it in just such a way, and then sign up to have UFA visit the property with wood chipper and send that stuff through the wood chipper. It's been relatively successful over the last few years. I think we get kind of slightly fewer participants each year we offer the program. We didn't hear from UFA about offering the program until sort of late in the season this year. But if you saw the newsletter, we do have a Chipper Days event slated for. I don't actually have material about that up at the moment. I believe it's October 5th through October 7th. So in the newsletter on Friday, there was a notice about Chipper Day, and by the end of the week, I'm going to email some homeowners, some neighborhood representatives, et cetera, directly about the opportunity to sign up for Chipper Day. It's a little bit late, but hopefully we can get a couple properties to participate in that this year. So you can send any interested parties my way, or let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, so turning from the past to the future, which was included in Chipper Days, September 17th, which is just a few days from now, there's going to be a Citizens Climate Lobby event at 5:30 in the Wildcat parking lot, a group led by Bill Barron, who is, I guess, a occasional ski patroller here, longtime Alta person, is going to be, he has been riding a bicycle tour with others around the state, advocating for activities that will reduce climate change. And their culmination is this is on September 17th, and I would encourage anybody to come down and cheer them on. Climate change is probably the greatest threat to civilization that we have ever known. We've had some discussions with the Patsy Marley estate related to changing the 10-lot subdivision to a hotel in the lower part. And John Byrne has been very helpful in that, and has gotten some help, very helpful help in that goal. Where the idea basically is to turn the upper portion of their property into a conservation easement and have them instead building a hotel near the bottom of the lift, which is what Jody Schranz had in mind 25 years ago. We've been also discussing with them completing the water line in Grizzly Gulch, which has about 150 feet to go. And we certainly are trying to get that finished before the construction season falls ends. There's a planning commission meeting scheduled on September 27th, and there'll be a presentation by Josh Van Jura, who's been the project manager for the UDOT EIS at that meeting. So if reading the 1,800 pages of the EIS is a little too daunting, you might just want to attend that meeting and get a 30-minute synopsis. With respect to trails that came up and e-bikes, but more than that, Coleman has approached us on working with them to lay out a trail plan, and we're going to meet with him next month and hope to be able to say more about that at the town council meeting. Sheridan's had an interesting thought, which is why can't we ride e-bikes where trucks go, which are motor vehicles. I hadn't thought of that argument before. Our next meeting will be October 12th at 3 o'clock. If we have work session, I'll start. Our next meeting will be at 4 o'clock on October 12th. If we have a work session, I'll start half an hour earlier. And one note I would make on current events: that the British monarchy is an anachronism, but the British seem to like it that way. And the town of Alta is kind of an anachronism too, but most of us like it that way. So with that, I'll move on to discussion of the noise ordinance. So who would like to start that?
If it'd be helpful, Mayor, I'm happy to start out to just sort of lay the groundwork.
Okay.
So the proposed ordinance, the enacting ordinance, the attachment, and the staff report really was just an effort to give options and language examples to the council for what the council wants in the ordinance. And so it is difficult in some way to draft a single ordinance that would encompass all the various viewpoints. And so what I've tried to do is to include everything that was brought up in feedback or in discussions and I may not have included explicitly everything that was a suggestion, but there's a highlight of areas that the council can change. And so based on what the proposal is, the council can change everything in that. And so you can pass just the first section, like I indicated in the staff report. You can change wording, you can add clauses. And so the staff report and the ordinance are not meant to restrict the council's option. Instead, rather, it's intended to give you as many options as we can think of to allow you to pick and choose from and pass or not an ordinance that the council would agree with. And so that's what the effort was for. And so there was no specific agenda necessarily in what the proposed ordinance was for, other than just to give options.
Okay. You know, a lot of discussion occurred between 3 and 4 on this topic. And okay, go ahead, Carolyn.
I guess I just want to make sure that while Mike Mon is still on the phone, that he hears my opinion. Or did he just disappear? Maybe he just.
I had forgotten to move him over earlier, so you.
Oh, okay. He's still on there. Sorry.
He is still with us.
He is still with us. Okay, great. I guess one, I am very pro-business, and it is. There were some comments made about, oh, then the noise ordinance is going to be at 9 o'clock at night, or you can't listen to loud, fun music at the Gold Miner's Daughter outside anymore. That's not what the noise ordinance is about. It's about late night noise and early morning noise that that disturbs the animals and disturbs our small population of folks here. So I am not anti-business. Number 2, the reason why we are all here, and this is not number 2, this is number 1, is because of the ski resort. None of us would live here. None of us would work here. None of us would be here if it wasn't for the Alta Lift Company. So I love the Alta Lift Company. And John Byrne pointed out some things in the noise ordinance that would make it difficult for me. Like I want to make sure that Mike Mon doesn't have to add to his plate of things to do. Did I apply for a helicopter permit 3 months from now to make sure that I can fly my steel in that didn't come? Like, we don't need to make a barrier for Mike. And I think that the noise that the lift company makes, I would like to support their noise.
Okay. Further discussion.
Shall we move to have a vote? At some point, we just need to vote on the thing. I think I'd be certainly open to separating out the curfew time, because I think there's not going to be a majority, and maybe that's speculation, and maybe we just need to know and vote. But I think we're going to have a hard time moving forward without taking the 11 o'clock issue off the table, or 10:30. And I think that so I'd be in favor of either voting on and I'd make a motion to either vote on the ordinance in total, or to separate out the curfew time issue and see if there's support to change the curfew time. And I think that would at least be a step towards putting this issue behind us. So I'll make a motion to vote on the ordinance as presented.
What do you mean by curfew time, John? Do you mean a 10 p.m.
Changing the curfew time from 11 to 10:30 or 10?
So not differentiating from within 500 feet of a residential area, but from.
Well, that's not what's proposed. It's like, I think we can really only vote on what's been proposed or so far,
or amend it.
I'm open to looking into that 500-foot thing as an alternative, but I think it would be good to vote on the 11 o'clock thing, because if we could put that behind us, I think we could work more constructively together to explore with staff, Cameron and Polly particularly, the possibilities and what they think would still be enforceable down the road, because we don't want to undermine the ordinance by tagging on things that are going to render it unenforceable.
And I guess the only way that I would go for the 11 o'clock was that it was truly an 11 o'clock and we're done with the 11 o'clock. So there has to be some teeth in it can't just be a ticket.
I'm 100% supportive of you on that. And that's where this, our little soundbite, it's actually, I stole this from Goldner, of enforce it vigorously and then give enforcement a chance to work. The vigorously is, I think, exactly what you're driving at, which is it needs to have teeth and change what's happening. Because I'm not saying 11 and not have teeth. I'm saying 11 and that's really it. And the ordinance has to have enough teeth to get compliance.
Okay. Point of order here. John has made a motion which needs to have a second or it dies.
I'll second.
Okay, Sheridan has a second. All right,
And
now back to
I
Carolyn.
actually hopped on to, just as a point of order to make sure that, the council should be able to discuss the motion and not just go to a vote.
Yeah, I understand. And that's essentially what's happening now.
Right.
Yeah. Carolyn?
So as you know, I'm not a politician and these things are hard for me, but so I apologize if I don't play by the rules. It is not an intention. So John made a motion to pass this, but I won't pass John's motion unless there is some enforceable aspect to this. So I don't know how one raises another motion to tack on to that.
Oh, I think we can just amend the ordinance, which is how we would do it. And Cameron or Mike, you want to talk about the enforceable aspect of it?
Yeah, so Councilmember Byrne, not to alter your motion, but just as a suggestion, I think if the council wants to deal solely with the 11 o'clock, 10:30, 10 o'clock time issue, I think the way to do that is to simply pass the proposed ordinance, taking out section B of 53B1. And so if you delete section B of that first section in the proposed ordinance, what it essentially does is allow you to modify the time in section A, and that would cover all times. It would include the penalties and the fines in section 53B2, and also the exceptions and the permitting in 53B3. But if you just want to deal with the time, the first section with subsection A and the penalty is all you would need. And the rest we can pass today after further discussion, or we can, modify that in later meetings. But to just deal with the time issue, you would need at least 53B1A and 53B2 for the penalty.
I'm not sure that we're all quite there yet, with all due respect. And I think that's sort of reversing the process. I actually want to deal in more detail with what Carolyn's concerns and make sure that we have enough teeth. But I think the way to get there is to have a vote on the motion. So I'm going to simplify it. And just to make it clear, I think my motion was actually while I'm open to separating out the time issue, my motion was to pass the ordinance as it's presented today. And I believe that's been duly seconded. Mm-hmm. So I think we should vote on that. And then we can make an action plan as to where we go from there afterwards.
Just to make sure I know what I'm voting on, it's a 10:30 curfew. That's what's written down. Is that correct, John?
well, yeah, it's as the motion's presented, so including all the other things. But in the motion as presented, it's saying 10:30.
10:30.
Okay. Mike, did you want to say something?
Well, you mentioned my name when enforcement was brought up. So I guess just a couple of comments. As I said earlier in the work session, as compliance goes up, enforcement goes down. One of the things that we have as police officers is discretion powers. So when we gain compliance, we have some discretion as to whether or not to cite. If you want us to cite on every violation, you might want to include words like shall. I would caution you against taking away the discretion, because again, what's our goal? Our goal is compliance. Penalties, I've seen other cities and towns have ordinances that specifically address nuisance businesses or encourage, put civil sanctions in their ordinances, language along the lines of upon, the conviction for a third offense of this nature, the license, shall be reviewed by the town council, something like that. So those tools are available to you if you want to use them.
So basically what this does is it allows us to sort of live under a 10:30 rule for a while. It allows the businesses to sell things for next summer with a 10:30 curfew, even though they may have already purchased a wedding till 11 o'clock because the town changed things to 10:30. If compliance seems to be respected, we could revisit this the following year and change that curfew to a later time if behaviors had changed. Is that correct?
I think all of that is accurate. And I also want to point out that there's a 30-day delay before this ordinance, if it's passed, goes into effect. And so I think that would cover current events for the rest of this.
Cameron, did we classify this as an infraction?
Yeah, so that's a good point, Mike. So it can be either a civil violation or a criminal violation.
And who decides that?
The town does. And so that's one of the graduated steps that we can use. A criminal violation is obviously more serious than a civil violation. And so it's up to the town enforcement officer to determine which is going to be most effective.
And I would say that we don't have a system in place right now for issuing civil violations. But we could certainly build one.
Yeah, we passed the framework for that in anticipation of the parking, and so there is a framework there. It would take a couple of weeks to get the forms developed and distributed, but we would be able to enforce this within 30 days.
So the business would commit a crime, not a civil action. If
Well, it
we
depends on
don't,
how the ordinance is constructed. You could construct your ordinance to specifically target the individual causing the annoyance or the establishment allowing it to occur or continue.
So yes, a business can be charged with committing a civil violation or a crime. So for example, theft is a criminal charge, but there's also a civil action called conversion when somebody takes the property of another. And so a person or a business is subject to both of those actions.
But I mean, we have a specific ordinance on the table now. And is it up to the enforcement officer to decide whether it's a civil or a criminal violation?
The process that the enforcement official chooses to use to enforce the ordinance can be either civil or criminal.
Okay, so it's at that enforcement official's discretion.
Present day, we would issue a criminal citation and refer it to our justice court.
Yeah, I mean, it's anticipated that it's going to be. So I think the short answer is it's anticipated so far that it would be, when they say violation, they mean criminal violation.
Does that become
I'm sorry.
does that make you nervous as a business owner, John? Like the crime aspect versus a civil aspect, sir? I mean, if I have to answer like, hey, can I get staff privileges again? I have to check the box. I've never been convicted of a crime, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm reluctant to dive too deep into it because the ordinance needs to speak for itself that we're voting on. I think that, but you know, I'm making a motion that I'm calling the question. I will tell you that I'm going to vote against it. I'm going to vote against passing this. So I think you're sort of presuming by that I'm prepared to vote in favor of it. I just want to have a vote. I think that the motion is going to fail. And I think that post that vote, it's likely that the people who voted against it are going to express that the primary concern is the 11 o'clock things. And then, so it's sort of putting that issue in the rearview mirror. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that we can then move on and deal
I
with some of the other things. So
I did presume you were going to vote for it, and I was like, "This is super
right,
down this pathway."
I thought I mentioned, yeah. So I'm asking to call the question. I think we should have a vote and then make a plan from there. But in you know my panacea vision of the world, I think that it's going to get voted down, or it's not going to have a majority and fail because it doesn't have a majority. And then that'll give us the opportunity to look at some of these other things like enhancing the teeth. So I don't think we're actually going to pass a resolution today. This is, I think, though, a step towards a resolution of the issue.
Let me offer another thought, which is, what if we table this? I mean, I know this has been going on a long time, and I'm not really intrigued at the idea of extending it even further. But if we tabled it to next meeting and we had some revisions to it that were along the lines of the discussion that we had from 3 to 4, particularly clarifying the penalties and maybe, I don't know, changing the time. What I'd like to see if there are any thoughts on that.
My personal thought would be that it would be that I'd like to state, you know, I think that those conversations would be more productive if we look at the motion as it's presented today and vote yay or nay, and then maybe we'll all be on the same page. We'll be closer, and that those conversations will be more meaningful and useful, because we're just not making any progress on this issue. So I'm reluctant to withdraw my motion.
Okay.
You're gonna withdraw it now? Is that what you're saying?
No, he said he was reluctant to withdraw. He doesn't want to withdraw it.
I don't want to withdraw it. I think we should vote on the ordinance as it was presented today.
Okay. Sheridan, you want to say something about this?
I mean, I'm amenable to moving forward in the way that John is suggesting. I'm also amenable to tabling it. Either way, I don't think this issue is resolved today. But
okay,
we're midway into having a second on voting on this. I don't think it hurts us to vote on it.
Right.
Okay. All right. John has actually called for the question. So I think we're going to vote. Okay, so Jen, do you poll the electorate here to voting to adopt this ordinance or to not adopt this ordinance?
I don't believe I need to pull them. I think it's just a normal vote because it doesn't have a financial implication, right, Polly? You can just say all in favor and opposed,
yes,
right? Is that the
correct.
technical question you're asking, Roger? Is how to...
That's correct, but you could also poll everybody if you'd like. There's no legal reason why you can't.
Would you like me to, Roger?
Yeah.
Or excuse me, Mayor. You're training me well.
Yes. Yeah, not quite well enough.
Okay, so I will poll everybody. Mayor Burke,
I'm going to vote yes on, I'm going to vote yes on adopting.
okay. Councilmember Ansel,
I am also going to vote yes on adopting, with the reservation that I need to understand the criminal, and John's laughing at me. I need to make sure that it
I'm not
sits-
laughing at you.
Oh, well,
Laughing
laughing with me, sir. I need to make sure that the crime versus civil thing doesn't really send me for a loop, but I vote yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Byrne,
I vote nay.
and Councilmember Davis.
Nay.
Okay, so the motion does
Not.
not pass.
Just
So-
for historical reference, I
Yeah.
would tell you if Elise was here, her plan was to also vote nay.
Oh,
Just so you know.
my conversation with her this morning
Ah.
made me think that she would vote yes, but she's not here, so it
She's
doesn't
not here.
count.
We shouldn't speak for her.
Right, correct.
Yeah, and she hasn't been party to any of these discussions.
Right.
Listened to anything, so I don't
Okay.
think that that's really,
So I am more or less of a mind that we have a revised motion on the agenda for the October meeting. Okay.
Can I amend what I said? Very specific.
A revised ordinance, I'm sorry, not a revised motion.
And just so I understand John Burns' position, I think it's 11 PM or bust for everyone.
I think it's a.
That's not accurate to me.
Yeah, and I think that's consistent with what we've heard from the public. I think the public commentary has been overwhelmingly leave it at 11 o'clock. So it's not like it's my issue. I think that's what we're hearing. At the same time, maybe you and I, Carolyn, could agree on, we'd like to provide some direction to the legal staff to maybe focus on the teeth. This also seems consistent with Mike Morey's comments a few minutes ago. Let's focus on the teeth. There are some other tools we could use. Maybe we'd like to see some enhanced teeth. I think that Sharon and I thought Elise, and I won't try to speak for her. Yeah, the 11 o'clock thing, that's a big deal for us. If you take that off the table, which is what I think we just did, and we provide some direction to staff that we'd like to see the teeth section fleshed out, I think next meeting we could pass the ordinance.
You know, I'd like to see if John and Carolyn would agree to getting together and coming up with something that satisfies both of them.
Well, except that we need legal advice. So I mean, if you
consult
if you
with the,
I mean,
don't do it all by
that
yourself.
Cameron and I could work on it and then send it to Carolyn and see if she meets her needs, or the three of us could try to work on it together. But I can't make up what the teeth language should be because I'm not an attorney.
Right. Yeah, I should have included Cameron in that, but Carolyn, what do you think of that?
I think as long as the noise ordinance was truly an 11 PM cutoff that people really worked with, then I think that that's not unreasonable, and I can definitely get behind that. But that's not what it is today. It's a creep, and despite multiple warnings, there's been no change. So, I could get behind that if I knew that that's what was going to happen.
Well, and that would be the point of it, would be to get enough language in there regarding it truly being 11 o'clock that it makes you comfortable. And I'm 100% supportive of that. 100%. So I think we're actually much closer than it may seem here. And I think the businesses, this is important to say, I think the businesses are fine with that. I think, every conversation I've had with Tom Pollard or Cliff Curry, none of them are objecting to that this is really going to be an enforceable curfew. that Mike we're going to ask Mike to enforce it vigorously. So I think we're actually closer to
close.
getting something that works. Cameron has been listening dutifully, and I think he has a good sense of where we want to see it go.
Sheridan, you want to say something?
Oh, thanks. Just to be clear, I am in support. I'm most in support of simplicity. I think if we had gone with our original ordinance and set times that I could go to 10:30 as a compromise. I have no issue with that. I want to see a morning time because I want to see an 8-hour window in which we're asking for quiet. But I'm most in support of moving forward on this in a way that really gives Mike what he initially asked for, defensibility, enforceability, and doesn't kind of keep dragging us into this morass of every possible noise violation that we might see as a town.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other contentious issue is asking the ski area to get a permit for their helicopter use.
Yeah.
I mean, you heard Mike's response to that. I don't know what to say, Matt. I think we should just have a cleaner exemption for ski area winter operations, at least.
Yeah.
If you wanted to bifurcate it into their winter and summer operations, you're sort of saying construction related or not. I'd be inclined to, at least the winter operations, I think should be exempt.
Yeah. Okay, Mike.
And I could see that.
That's right.
If you'll forgive me, I'm just a little concerned that we as a town experienced so much helicopter traffic, in part because we were the staging area for multiple places of work, not just Elta's work that needed to be done, but if I understand it correctly, Brighton's and Snowbirds. That I think deserves our scrutiny.
I do too.
And criticism.
Yeah.
Would it be better to come up with then I guess we're getting to the public meeting thing. Maybe working to come up with a redraft and try to address some of these issues. Indulge me for a moment and say, and I think Carolyn's okay with this, saying 11 o'clock if it's truly enforceable, and let's see what Cameron can come up with. And I'd be happy to read the draft if he'd like or not. But see what he can come up with in terms of teeth that's going to make everybody feel sanguine about the issue.
And I agree with not skirting over the comment about the helicopter traffic. That has been horrific this summer. And I think if we are doing work for our resort, then yes. But if we're doing work for another resort, then that needs to take place someplace else.
Yeah.
And I recognize that that's very expensive. And so I don't know how to rectify that, but I don't know if there's a line in there that it's for work that is for Alta Ski Resort.
Well, that's something Cameron can figure out for us, right?
Yeah, in a practical sense, the time limitation would restrict the amount of work that can be done. And therefore, hopefully, the ski resort would concentrate on work that's taking place here rather than elsewhere.
Yeah, that's okay. I'd like to move on from this topic. Right?
So are where are we leaving it?
Okay, where are we leaving it?
It's going to come up with a redraft, or we're going to work towards a redraft?
Yeah, and I'd like if you, John, and Carolyn with Cameron can agree on a redraft, I think that will be likely to get passed next time. We'll see. In other words, unfortunately we can't work more than two together. Those are the rules. So
sure, I'm fine participating or not participating. So that sounds good to me, Roger.
Okay, and Carolyn, you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Capital projects update. Chris.
Good evening. So I'll go first. Were you going to ask Sean to speak to the capital project, the water system projects separately, or
yes,
is this all me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't have a tremendous amount to add beyond what I included in my staff report. We are making good progress on good, if not particularly timely progress on several of the projects the council funded in the 2023 capital projects plan. I'll just kind of speak to the current status of a few of those, and then you all can ask any questions you like, and maybe we can spend a little bit more time talking about the community center. We are anticipating delivery of 9 new windows for the town office building on October 10th, and then installation of those windows as soon as possible after that. The project was funded at an amount of $6,000, I believe, in the capital projects plan. That amount was based on a 2-year-old bid. The updated bid in 2022 was just $300 more, so we expect the project will cost $6,332. On the firehouse garage heater vent modification project, we are ready to accept a proposal from a low bidder, which happens to be HVAC contractor that does annual maintenance on our furnaces and humidifiers in our buildings, and has installed a couple pieces of hardware at the town over the years, including just this past May at the town office. That project was funded in the capital projects plan at $8,000, and the proposal is for a $5,567 project. So we're happy to report that one looks like it'll come in under what we budgeted. The contractor can be available 2 weeks from when we accept the proposal. So I'm hoping that this one can be scheduled for early October up at the community center. The project to create safe access to the roof of the community center building, we just the other day went ahead and ordered a 21-foot tall steel ladder with a safety cage and a locking door. That we plan to attach to the west side of the building, kind of on the exposed concrete block there, behind where UDOT parks a road grader in the wintertime. We have a tentative installation plan for the ladder, but aspects of that of the plan are just going to have to remain tentative until we have the ladder in hand and can understand the impact it's going to have on the space there. That project was funded at $5,000 in the capital projects plan, and we just spent a little over $3,000 on the ladder. On the community center rear yard erosion control project, I wasn't present at the August meeting, but in July and August, I had a couple different meetings with a sort of known geostabilization or rockfall mitigation contractor recommended to us by the Utah Department of Transportation. That contractor visited the site twice, including on one visit, he flew a heavy equipment subcontractor, possible heavy equipment subcontractor, out from Reno to visit the project site. I assume they were checking out a number of projects, but at any rate, I just wanted to describe that I know this contractor was taking our project seriously. We don't have a formal estimate for the project, but basically, or for a project, but basically with the contractor, I talked through a couple possible project approaches, and one possible project approach would involve essentially cutting a road or a pathway through the vegetation, beginning at the UTA shelter across the street from the Rustler Lodge, up onto the top of the slope behind the community center building, so that a spider hoe, which is like a small sort of mobile excavator, can get on top of the slope. They would use the equipment to remove as much material as possible, as much sort of rockfall debris as possible from behind the building, and then apply new rockfall netting over all of the existing netting back there. And the contractor told me that that could cost as much as $250,000. We discussed a sort of more limited approach, which would involve basically hanging a single roll of rockfall netting over a place in the existing paneling that's just open and the hillside is exposed. That would still be an expensive project. per the contractor's estimate, it could cost $50,000 or more. And the contractor basically told me he's not sure how much safety that would actually, how much of a safety improvement that would actually amount to. And a note on both of those project approaches is that they do not include any work on slopes, the slope behind the post office annex to the community center building or on the west side of the building. And both of those areas are active rockfall areas. And of course, as we've discussed, we had a little rockfall incident that affected the post office building about a year ago, last October. You know, that project was funded at $10,000 in the plan, and that was never really a serious real world amount. That was a placeholder that we put in the plan. I was hopeful at the outset that we would not be talking about a six-figure project, but I've heard sort of back of the napkin estimates from other potential contractors that it would cost over $100,000 to do a rockfall mitigation project on the back of the building. So we're in a position where we need to decide how much we're willing to spend to improve the situation that exists with regard to rockfall hazard around that building. We haven't had a structured conversation about spending $250,000 on the problem. So what we've been preparing to recommend on staff and in consultation with the mayor is developing a request for proposals for some more limited project in the amount of $50,000 to $100,000 that would improve safety for a period of 2 to 5 years, with the understanding that we would start talking about replacing that building as soon as possible. And I guess I would just add before, opening up to any comments or conversation about any of the projects. I intended to be prepared with some more compelling sort of call to action with regard to discussing the community center replacement, but I didn't put anything together. But I do just want to point out a couple more things about that building and the conundrum we're in with our projects there. I'm confident we're going to be able to complete the other two projects that I just described that we're planning to do up at that building before we're in the depth of winter. But the situation with the rockfall hazard around the building caused us to hesitate for moving forward with those projects until we could understand the potential that we might have a project ready to roll out. And that's not the only, there are other problems with that building that are going to cost money to solve. And just as one example, the roof to the post office annex is neither flat, like so many roofs are in Alta, so that they essentially just hold a snow load and don't need to be shoveled. But it's also not steep enough so that the snow, or it's not consistently pitched so that the snow slides off. So we end up with huge snow loads on that roof that I'm sure everyone has observed over the years. One potential project we've talked about but not moved forward with proposing to you all or estimating the costs of is a project to change the pitch on that roof so that the snow slides off. But again, we get caught in this kind of conversation about should we spend the money in a building that might be at the end of its useful life, or should we move as fast as possible toward replacing that building? I'm confident that the first three projects I described we can get done before we're in ski season. And the situation with regard to the back of the community center is something that I think we need to keep talking about over the next couple of months, so that hopefully by next summer we're either ready to take bids on a small scale rockfall mitigation project, or move more rapidly towards potentially replacing the building.
That is a very big question. And not one that I want to tackle at almost 6 o'clock. John, you want to say something on capital projects and the enterprise funds?
Hello, I was muted. Just a couple of things. They're not really part of the capital projects plan, but they're water projects that we have talked about before. The first one, Peruvian Estates West, we call it. We had the engineering done and we had a great plan to put a brand new big line at the proper depth so that it doesn't freeze from the pressure reducing valve in a vault just off the bypass road. And then the line would go down to the bottom of the houses where there's another fire hydrant. We had the engineering done. We took bids. 3 people bidded. Nobody felt real comfortable because we don't have as-built for that system. Kind of like the community center. The community center literally was drawn up by Jim Shane on a Gold Miner's Daughter placemat, and ski patrollers built it. Our water line is maybe a little better than that, but it's not deep enough. And we don't know where things are going. So this yesterday, or maybe the day before, Keith had Newman Construction dig out the PRV, expose the pressure reducing valve vault, and look at the PRV because we had no idea where the laterals were going. Well, now we know. And as Keith said, we learned a lot. It'll really help us solidify what we need to do to proceed with that project next year, which we're going to do. So they dug it up, they looked at everything, and they put it back to bed. Sadly, it was on brand new asphalt, which we will replace and make it smooth as it was next year when we do the project. I left something out. We thought about trying to get a new vault and a new pressure reducing valve in that vault. Can't get them. Who knows how long it would be to get them, but there's no way we could get them by the snow fall. So we're set up to do that project. We've learned a lot about that system and we'll be ready to go in the spring. Another part of that project was a fire hydrant on the north side of the road across from Hellgate, coming from the service areas. They've got a non-potable water reservoir up the hill. So it would be an emergency use only. Fire hydrant for emergency fires, not culinary, nothing that can get distorted into abusing our contract. But they decided, yeah, there's a fire hydrant right now by Hellgate. There's a fire hydrant at the bottom of the road at Peruvian Estates, and there's a fire hydrant at the top of the road just off the bypass road. So we have 3 hydrants. They're working. 4 will be better, but we're going to do that next year. So we're poised and ready to go on that project. And we knew more than we did before, and now the bidders will be more comfortable. Roger alluded to the second one, Grizzly Gulch. The Grizzly Gulch water line that we have is in our water easement. It's a non-exclusive easement. It's a shallow line. It has broken before. It has frozen before. And to be safe, we're running that at 3 to 4 gallons per minute all winter long. We're never sure if we get a lot of snow early and it's not that freezing cold, it probably won't freeze, but we can't risk that. So we have to run that continuously. When we were negotiating with Schranz Estate, we came to an agreement where they're going to use that easement, our easement. It's a non-exclusive easement. They can cut up the hill towards their property. Syringa, or one of the fiber companies, would have had to go around the first switchback and then up to the Schranz property, the upper reaches of the Schranz property for their fiber. So this really helped them out. We made a deal that when they were digging for their gas, fiber, electric, they could throw a new water line in for us at the proper depth, a newer, bigger, more modern line, and then we would reimburse them for that line. We could not come to an agreement on how much we would reimburse them for. I mean, the price fluctuated. They put some of the pipe in before getting cut off by winter 2 years ago. We've been negotiating again, and I keep looking at my phone to see if I'm getting an email, but not to happen. We came to an agreement the other day. We don't have it in writing yet, but if that agreement is solid, and we get it in writing, we'll be able to finish that Grizzly Gulch line to the homes in Grizzly this year. It'll take about 3 or 4 days, and that's it. So we've solidified the negotiations. We just haven't got the reception in writing yet. So we're ready to go. There's 2 other things that are related to the water system. Grizzly Gulch, as part of the Water Smart grant, Grizzly Gulch right now there's an emergency generator that runs a pump that's powered by propane. If the power goes out in that area, there are a number of houses that have no water. So we have done the engineering, submitted to Dominion Energy last year. They've approved it, and they were going to put that gas line in last year towards the end of the year. The end of the year came in snow about 3 weeks before they were thinking it was gonna. So they say they're definitely doing it this year. The second gas conversion project we're going to do, the gas line stops around the Snow Pine. We'd have to go from about the Snow Pine under the road up to our water building because that's currently run by electricity. And if we get a power outage for more than a couple of days, the water in the mine building could freeze because the heaters are run by electricity. The engineering was all done for that last year, turned into Dominion Energy again, just like Grizzly Gulch. We have not heard back. I'm trying to push them to see if they can get that done this year. But once we do the plans, give them the engineering, pay them their permit fee, it's totally up to them. They have their own contractors. Diamond S will be doing the work at Grizzly Gulch, and they were supposed to be looking at on the ground conditions for the main mine this year. Of course, the guy who's in control of this is the 4th person I've worked with in the last year at Dominion.
Oh, God.
And he's just recovering from COVID. But he said, we'll look at it, but I don't have any great hopes that the gas conversion to the main building will happen this year, the mine building. But we don't normally get, I shouldn't say this, 2 or 3 day power outages. That's what it would take for us to get into trouble in that main building. But they have said, yep, we're going to do the gas to Grizzly Gulch, and I'm waiting. I mean, we only need 3 or 4 days. And the people that are doing the job were the people that just dug at Peruvian Estates West. They're good. They're helping the DOT right now with some of the DOT work. They're ready to go. So we're just waiting for the word. And I think we have everything all worked out. We just don't have the final signature yet to finish and complete the Grizzly Gulch water line. So end of the season always happens at the end of the season. We try to cram everything in. I'm hoping we can get, 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
So, but then we'll hit it up again next year.
Any questions?
Rapid fire.
So Chris or John? So let's go to Sheridan. Sheridan's been patiently waiting here on affordable
Mayor,
housing.
Maybe superstitious belief that if we don't adhere to our schedule, there'll be an uproar amongst council, and that we've enjoyed a nice long level of peace because we have done such a good job adhering to that. Would you mind if I punted and we went to the next meeting with it?
If I could put you on early in the agenda, I would be happy to do that.
That would be terrific.
I think that okay, so let's do that. And the winter parking update, I think Chris really covered that earlier, and Mike Bond. If anybody has any questions about that, I would entertain those, but I think that I think those have been satisfied. In which case we could go to new business. Anybody on the council like to raise any new business items?
I'm curious if also we could have more insight as a collective council into what's happening with negotiations with the Patsy Marley estate.
Oh,
I feel like I'm very much in the dark with that, although I have heard some things. And then I wondered if I might briefly, after punting on my piece, impose on Dr. Anktil to describe to us her assessment of COVID risks, current COVID risks.
Yeah, I should have hit that earlier. Let's do that one first.
Oh my gosh, isn't it awful? And it's so crazy. And, Roger and I had a brief conversation about, getting the third booster and how so many of my partners have been super wiped out by the third booster. And so we should all get it. And I guess gives yourself space to not feel well. But I think, oh my gosh, Sheridan, hopefully this winter is going to be very different. And yeah,
in a good way.
I think in a fabulous way. And hopefully many of us have returned to travel as well. But yeah, and I will say, Sheridan, it just anecdotally, we still see COVID, and I still see sick COVID, and I've seen a lot of sick kids with COVID, and it's still out there and nasty. So for those of us who haven't gotten it, or hopefully we won't get it again, but yeah, I want it just to go away.
Yeah, thank you. John, do you want to say anything? I'm not encouraging.
I have a quick new business thing, or two quick little housekeeping things. One, getting that Grizzly Gulch line done, if that in fact happens, that's a great accomplishment, and it's been a long road. So I just wanted to applaud John's efforts to make that happen and recognize that it's, years of work has gone into it, and yours as well, Roger. I know that you've been very instrumental in keeping us focused on getting that line in place. I also want to thank you, Roger, for taking the time to explain to me why the tank issue with the Schranz estate matters and the location of the tank. When I was up at your house yesterday or a couple of days ago, you were pointing out where it goes, and also the difference in pressurization and why that's an important issue. And I thanks for taking your time to explain that to me, because it was kind of escaping me as to why we cared. But I see now why we do care is really a question of functionality, not just the aesthetic. So thank you for that.
I think of it as just,
what's that?
I think of it as using gravity intelligently.
Right.
Gravity is more dependable than mechanics.
Yeah.
Having it be gravity fed during emergencies just is a huge difference. And then dovetailing on what Carolyn said, I went for the booster the other day, and the Walgreens website prompted me to get the flu shot. And then I opted for the longer lasting heavy duty flu shot. And man, I was crushed. It was like 24 hours. I couldn't get out of bed. Luckily by the 36-hour mark, I was back in the real world. So it passed, but it was brutal. I would definitely not recommend doing the flu shot and the booster at the same time. That was a bad idea.
The only good thing about that, John, is as a very productive member of society, then you only have to take one day out of your life. Otherwise, it's like ripping the Band-Aid slowly off.
And that would be the perfect analogy for little property tax increases every single year.
Yeah.
Waiting for 10 years and then dumping a gigantic raise upon everyone. Now, Sheridan, quickly, you're not really in the dark. I think in a nutshell, we have only had a few discussions with the Patsy Marley estate. They'd like to change from the 10-house plan to a lodge down below with 20 acres of open space. And we've consistently said, it has to fit there. It has to fit there in the way that everybody else in the town has used the base facility zone. So we just kind of go back and forth, and they haven't come back with anything that quite fits that yet.
But we're still working with them on it.
Oh yeah, we're not giving, everybody would rather have 20 acres of open space and a lodge down below.
Yeah.
But how big, how tall, how many units, and the condo issue, that's what we're kind of dancing gently around, and it hasn't really come to a head yet, but it will.
My support of that is somewhat predicated on the idea that everything happens below the summer road. So like when you're trying to assess what we're getting, is that, they keep everything below the summer road, everything above the summer road, the first switchback of the summer road, I guess I should say, stays untouched land and is preserved. So I think if they could keep all of their construction below the road, there really is public benefit.
Right.
Can we ask for affordable housing to be part of it and forward?
You anticipated Sheridan's question.
Well, so here's a,
I mean, it's too bad when the Snow Pine was built that you know, there was not a portion of affordable housing or something. So I don't know if that's something we can work on in the future.
well, it is, it's a little different. We do things a little differently. One of the schemes that municipalities rely on is going to the private sector, and when they're building something, hey, build a little affordable housing for the employees. You know, that's a resource that a lot of people rely on. We do it a little bit different because if you're building a lodge, we make you put in employee housing, at least for just your lodge. It's kind of tricky to say, we'll give you this building. You have to have employee units for your employees, and you have to convince us that, well, we have an ordinance that tells how many employee spots have to be, how many parking spots have to be provided with any new building. But it's kind of tough to get them to throw in a couple of housing. I mean, it works when you've got flat land and subdivisions. It's more difficult with single lodge buildings, but it can be a discussion.
Well, as a little teaser for our next council meeting, this lovely book that the town has for all of us, Ground Rules, does state that all municipalities must have, based on the state legislature's requirements, a moderate to low income housing plan. So it's something that we do have to develop. It's something we have to talk about.
Well, don't get mad at me.
I'm not.
Don't get mad at me, but we don't have to do it because we're a town. However,
Really?
yeah, however, we're exempt because we're little. However, when I talk to the people at the state about, you know, I said, well, we have 81% Forest Service land. We have heavy avalanches. You know, there's very little private land that's developable beyond lodging. What we do is try to get everybody to put an employee unit in their house, and we make every commercial building have on-site employee housing. How does that work? And they didn't know, but they never called back. I mean, we don't have to do it anyway, but at least I said, we do try to house as many people as we can.
I think great job.
But yeah, so I think that we kind of fit the what they're looking for.
Okay.
But it'll be fun to listen to your idea, because when you look at Crested Butte, Park City, I mean, they've all got some good plans. Telluride.
Telluride has one way or another gotten them to build a ton of off-site affordable housing. It's been a very successful program there.
Right. But that's where we run into problems. Where's our offsite?
Yeah.
Where's our empty subdivisions?
I was going to mention too, I love your optimism, John, but I know at least one lodge owner that isn't thrilled about this additional lodge idea in town. So it might be
almost everybody. Almost everybody then. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Craig, you've had your hand up for a long time.
Still muted, Craig.
There. Yes, I just want to remind you, Roger, that I did request time to present sort of a new budget process at the next meeting. I will create a presentation and send it out at a time in the hope that that will shorten the discussion time at the meeting. I do think it's enough of a change that rather than just doing it at the budget committee, it actually makes sense to do it at the whole council meeting. And finally, in preparation thereof, I have sent out twice previously a survey for everybody to complete. I'm happy to say that all of the staff members completed their survey, but only half of the council members. It will only take 10 or 15 minutes. If you can't figure out how to do it, call me. I will walk you through it on a Zoom. I'm going to send it out again to the council members because only 2 of them have responded so far.
But if they call you, it won't be anonymous anymore. So
yeah,
well, that's true.
Be scared.
But John, yours wasn't either because you called me.
Anything else in the way of new business? Here it is, 6:13. We're over the time. Would anyone like to introduce our favorite motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Seconded by Sheridan. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much, folks. This has been a
Yes.
long afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Everybody,
your patience, everybody.
good job. Take care.
All right.